Part 1. Arrival in Redstone Creek. The stagecoach shuddered to a halt, kicking up a whirlwind of dust that shimmered in the Wyoming sun. Abigail Harper clutched her battered leather valise, the sum of her worldly possessions, and stepped onto the cracked earth of Redstone Creek. She had crossed a continent with nothing but a flicker of hope and a promise inked on fragile paper. But in the unforgiving West, promises could crumble like dry leaves, and hope could splinter faster than a saloon glass under a cowboy's boot. The journey from Boston had been grueling, 6 days of jolting roads, stale biscuits, and the constant ache of uncertainty. Abigail's gray dress, once her pride, was now creased and travel-stained, though she'd pressed it with care before boarding. Her threadbare gloves hid hands roughened by years of needlework, and her boots bore the scuffs of a life spent scraping by. Yet, as she stood on the dusty Main Street, her heart pounded with a mix of dread and anticipation. This was Wind River Valley, the place that had haunted her dreams since Samuel Thornton's first letter arrived at her cramped Boston boarding house. She pulled the letter from her pocket, its edges frayed from countless readings, and traced the bold script of Samuel Thornton, cattle baron and her intended. Redstone Creek, she whispered, the name a prayer and a challenge. The other passengers, a textile merchant and his prim wife, cast sidelong glances, their pity as palpable as the summer heat. "Getting off here, miss?" the wife asked, adjusting her velvet bonnet. "Yes, ma'am," Abigail replied, the word fiancé still foreign on her lips. "My intended is waiting." Brave, they called her, but Abigail felt more desperate than daring. The textile factory's closure had stripped her of her seamstress job, and eviction loomed like a storm cloud. Samuel's advertisement in the Matrimonial Times had been a lifeline. Rancher, 34, seeks wife of good character for established Wyoming homestead. Must assist with household duties. Photograph optional. She hadn't sent a photo. Portraits were a luxury she couldn't afford. Instead, she'd poured her truth into letters. Her skill with a needle, her knack for bookkeeping from a stint at a Boston mercantile, her love of poetry, her inexperience with ranch life but eagerness to learn. She'd written of her parents' deaths from cholera 3 years prior, leaving her to navigate a city growing colder and crueler by the day. What she hadn't confessed was her destitution, her last coin spent on the stagecoach ticket, her gray dress mended with stitches so fine they were nearly invisible. The coach lurched to a stop, and Abigail gathered her valise, tucking Samuel's letters inside. "Good luck, dear," the merchant's wife said, her eyes softening. Abigail nodded and stepped into Redstone Creek, a frontier town smaller than she'd imagined. A single street lined with raw timber buildings, a general store, a raucous saloon, a clapboard church with a sagging steeple, a livery stable, buzzed with men in dusty Stetsons. The sun beat down, and Abigail scanned the crowd for Samuel Thornton, described in his letters as tall, blond, and clean-shaven, a description that fit half the men in sight. "You look lost, ma'am," a boy of about 12 said, chewing a licorice whip. "Stage don't come often." "Meeting someone, Mr. Samuel Thornton," Abigail said, her voice steadier than her nerves. "Know him," the boy's eyes widened. "Mr. Thornton." "Sure do. His spread's 5 miles out." "Want me to fetch him?" "He's usually here Saturdays for supplies." "Is he in town now?" Abigail asked, her pulse quickening. The boy nodded. "Saw him at the feed store earlier." "There he is, leaving the blacksmith's." Abigail's gaze followed the boy's pointing finger, and her breath caught. A man emerged from a shop, tall and lean in a tailored coat, his blonde hair catching the sunlight. He moved with the swagger of someone who owned the ground beneath him. "Thank you," she murmured, and the boy scampered off. Smoothing her dress, Abigail lifted her valise and walked toward him, each step a leap toward the life she'd gambled everything to claim. Part 2: A Cold Rejection. Samuel Thornton was inspecting a coil of rope when he sensed her approach. He looked up, his blue eyes cool and appraising, narrowing as Abigail drew near. "Mr. Thornton," she said, her voice firm despite the knot in her stomach. "Yes," he studied her, no spark of recognition in his gaze. "I'm Abigail Harper from Boston." She paused, waiting for realization to dawn. It came slowly, his brow furrowing before his eyes widened. "Miss Harper, you're here." "I received your letter confirming our arrangement," she said, offering a tentative smile. "I came as soon as I could." A shadow crossed his face, surprise, yes, but something else. Unease, perhaps. "Miss Harper, I wasn't expecting you so soon." "Your last letter said any time after April," she reminded him. "It's nearly June." He nodded, but his eyes flicked over her worn dress, her lone valise, her lack of finery. "Where's the rest of your luggage?" Heat rose in Abigail's cheeks. "This is all I brought. I thought it best to travel light." His jaw tightened, and his gaze turned clinical, assessing her worth in dollars and cents. "We should talk privately," he said, leading her to a small diner beside the hotel. The place was nearly empty, save for an elderly couple by the window sipping lemonade. Samuel chose a corner table, pulling out a chair with mechanical courtesy. Abigail sat, folding her hands to still their trembling. "Coffee?" he asked. "Please," she said, her mouth dry with dread. The coffee arrived, steaming and bitter, but Samuel's handsome face was now a mask, far from the warmth she'd imagined in his letters. "Miss Harper," he began, stirring his coffee without looking at her, "there's been a misunderstanding." Her heart plummeted. "What kind?" "You described yourself as a woman of modest means," he said, choosing his words like a lawyer. You assumed I wasn't penniless," Abigail finished, her voice soft but unflinching. His eyes met hers, startled by her candor. "I've built a thriving ranch, Miss Harper. I need a wife who can contribute, funds to expand, a proper trousseau, something." "I was honest about my situation," she said, her chest tightening. "I told you I lost my job, that I'm a seamstress. You didn't mention arriving with nothing but a bag," he snapped. "A man like me needs a wife who elevates his status, not another burden to bear." The words hit like a slap, each one stripping away the dreams she'd stitched together over months. She'd known the West was harsh, but she hadn't expected her worth to be measured so coldly, like cattle at auction. "I have skills," she said, fighting to keep her voice even. "I can sew, keep accounts. Skills I can hire for pennies," he interrupted. "I need capital, Miss Harper. Last summer's drought nearly ruined me." He stopped, as if regretting his candor. Outside, a group of ranchers passed, their laughter pausing as they peered inside, sensing the drama. Abigail felt their stares, the weight of a town already whispering her story. "I've announced our engagement in the church bulletin," Samuel said, lowering his voice. "People expect a wedding, but under these circumstances." "You wish to retract your proposal," Abigail said flatly. He shifted, uncomfortable but resolute. "I'll pay for your ticket back to Boston." Her nails dug into her palms. "And what would I return to, Mr. Thornton?" "I gave up my room, sold my last possessions." Guilt flickered in his eyes, quickly smothered. "That's not my concern. I promised nothing unconditional." "No," she agreed, a bitter edge to her voice. "You merely implied it with every letter." The diner's patrons were openly watching now, their murmurs a dull roar. "What will you tell them?" she asked, nodding toward the window where more townsfolk lingered. "The truth," he said, jaw tight. "That there was a misunderstanding." "The truth," she echoed, barely audible. That I'm too poor to be Mrs. Thornton. His silence was answer enough. A strange calm settled over her, masking the humiliation burning within. "Better I look the fool," she said, "the desperate woman who came west with a bag and a broken dream." Before he could respond, the door swung open, and a rowdy group of cowhands burst in, their boots thudding like drumbeats. One spotted Samuel. "Thornton! There you are." He swaggered over, then paused, sensing the tension. "This the mail-order bride?" Abigail stiffened at the term, raw and reductive. Samuel stood abruptly. "Not now, Brady," but Brady extended a hand. "Welcome to Redstone Creek, ma'am." "When's the big day?" The diner fell silent, every ear tuned to their table. Samuel's face tightened with panic, desperate to avoid public shame. "There won't be a wedding," he said curtly. "A misunderstanding." Brady blinked, confused. "What kind?" "The kind where I expected a bride with means, not a pauper with a bag," Samuel snapped, his composure shattering. A gasp rippled through the room. Abigail froze, the words echoing like a gunshot. She'd endured loss, poverty, the quiet indignities of a woman alone, but never such public stripping of her dignity. With deliberate grace she stood, smoothed her dress and lifted her valise. "Thank you for the coffee, Mr. Thornton," she said, her voice clear and steady. "I won't trouble you further." She walked out, past the staring faces, into the blinding Wyoming sun. Behind her, the diner erupted in chatter, Samuel's voice rising in defense. She didn't look back. Part 3: A Storm and a Sanctuary. Abigail walked down Redstone Creek's main street, her mind a whirlwind. She had 25 cents in her pocket, not enough for a meal, let alone a room or a ticket east. The sun scorched her uncovered head, mocking her plight. At the town's edge, where buildings gave way to sagebrush and rolling plains, she paused. The Wind River Valley stretched before her, vast and untamed, dotted with grazing cattle and distant homesteads. This was the West she dreamed of, freedom, opportunity, now a cruel mirror of her failure. A wagon rattled past, the driver tipping his hat, a gesture of frontier courtesy. Abigail watched it vanish, then turned away from town, walking with no destination, only the need to escape the whispers. "I won't cry," she told herself, her reflection in a muddy puddle defiant. Thunder growled on the horizon, and she glanced up to see storm clouds piling over the Wind River range, their edges bruised and heavy. "Perfect," she muttered, a wry smile tugging at her lips. A fitting end to a catastrophic day. As rain began to fall, heavy drops splattering her dress, Abigail scanned the landscape. Through the downpour, she spotted a structure on a distant ridge, a barn, perhaps, beside a sturdy ranch house. With no better option, she trudged toward it, the mud sucking at her boots. Lightning cracked, thunder shaking the earth, and she quickened her pace, slipping up the hillside. The barn was old but solid, its timbers weathered by Wyoming winters. Smoke curled from the house's chimney, a sign of life within. Abigail hesitated at the property's edge. Another rejection would be unbearable, but the storm offered no mercy. She'd ask for shelter in the barn, nothing more. Surely no one would deny such a small kindness. Clutching that hope, she approached the barn door, rain hammering her shoulders. Her numb fingers fumbled with the latch, and the door groaned open. She stumbled inside, the sudden quiet deafening. The air smelled of hay, leather, and horses, a grounding, earthy scent that eased her frayed nerves. "Hello," she called softly. Only the rustle of horses answered, their eyes glinting in the dimness. The barn was larger than it appeared, with 8 stalls, half occupied by sleek animals that watched her curiously. Tools hung neatly on the walls, harnesses oiled and worn from use. This was no struggling homestead, Abigail realized, but a prosperous ranch with a lived-in warmth Samuel's manicured estate had lacked. Exhausted, she sank onto a hay bale, the day's weight crashing over her. Samuel's dismissal, the public shame, the endless walk. A sob rose, but she choked it back. Tears wouldn't help. She needed a plan, but the rain's rhythm and the barn's warmth lulled her. "Just a moment's rest," she whispered, laying her head on her valise. Her eyes closed, and she drifted into uneasy sleep. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" A deep voice pierced her dreams, urgent but kind. Abigail jolted awake, disoriented by the lantern-lit barn. A man stood over her, his face shadowed. "I'm sorry," she stammered, scrambling upright. "The storm, I didn't mean to trespass." "Easy now," he said, setting the lantern down. In its glow, she saw him clearly, tall, broad-shouldered, in a work shirt rolled to the elbows. His tanned face bore lines of laughter and loss, a short beard framing a strong jaw. Dark hair, lightly silvered, suggested he was in his mid-30s. "Caleb Dawson," he said, keeping a respectful distance. "This is my ranch." "And you are?" "Abigail Harper," she replied, smoothing her damp dress. "I'm sorry for intruding, Mr. Dawson. The storm caught me and I had nowhere else." His gray eyes, sharp yet kind, studied her. "You're a long way from anywhere to be walking in this weather, Miss Harper." There was no judgment, only curiosity that invited explanation. She hesitated, then chose truth over pride. "I arrived in Redstone Creek today. My plans fell apart. I found myself without shelter or means." Understanding flickered in his gaze. "You're the woman Thornton sent for." Her cheeks burned. "News travels fast. Small towns," he said with a shrug. "Secrets don't last." She reached for her valise. "I'll go now." The rains eased. "Where to?" he asked, skeptical but not unkind. "It's past midnight. Town's 5 miles back and there's nothing else for 20. She faltered, the truth stark. "I don't know." Caleb studied her, then sighed. "My house isn't fancy, but there's a spare room and stew on the stove." "You look like you need both." Suspicion warred with desperation. "Why help me?" "Because it's pouring, you're stranded, and I don't turn folks out into the night," he said simply, lifting the lantern. "Just food and shelter, Miss Harper. Nothing more." His straightforwardness decided her. "Thank you, Mr. Dawson." He led her across a muddy yard to a log house, its porch adorned with tin lanterns and herb boxes. Inside, a stone fireplace warmed a cozy room lined with bookshelves, the furniture sturdy and practical. "Warm yourself by the fire," Caleb said, pointing to an armchair. "I'll find you something dry." "You have women's clothes?" she asked, surprised. A shadow crossed his face. "My sister, Emily, stayed here a while. Left some things." He returned with a cotton nightgown and flannel robe, directing her to a spare room. The room was small but tidy, with a patchwork quilt and a window framing the moonlit valley. Abigail washed, changed, and rejoined Caleb, who was ladling stew. He'd shed his boots and jacket, his Henley-revealing arms corded from ranch work. The stew, beef, potatoes, carrots, was simple but divine to her starved senses. They ate in companionable silence, the fire's crackle a soothing backdrop. "What happened in town?" Caleb asked finally. "I only heard bits from Brady." Abigail set down her spoon. "I answered Mr. Thornton's ad for a bride. We wrote for months. He knew I was a seamstress, out of work. But when I arrived with just my valise, he expected wealth I didn't have. He rejected me in front of half the town." Caleb's jaw tightened. Thornton's always cared more for show than substance. She sensed a history there, but didn't pry. "I walked until the storm hit. Your barn was my only refuge. 5 miles in those boots," he noted, glancing at her drying shoes. That's no small feat, she managed a faint smile. I've endured worse. His expression softened, recognizing a kindred spirit. What now? I don't know, she admitted. I've got 25 cents. No job, no home to return to. I'll find work maybe in Cheyenne. Not in Redstone Creek, he said bluntly. Thornton's got the town council in his pocket. After today, folks won't hire you. The unfairness stung. Because I'm poor. Because Thornton's word is law here, Caleb said. Scandal's the town's lifeblood. Part 4, an unexpected offer. Caleb leaned back, his gray eyes steady. There's another option. I need help here, house garden accounts. Been managing alone since Emily left, but it's wearing me down. I can offer you the spare room, meals, and a wage until you decide your next step. Abigail stared, searching for a catch. You're offering me a job. As what? Housekeeper, ranch hand, both, he shrugged. I care about results, not titles. Why trust a stranger? I trust what I see, he said. You walked 5 miles in a storm rather than beg where you weren't wanted. You slept in a barn rather than compromise. And Thornton's a fool for not seeing your worth. He stood, clearing their bowls. The offer's good for a week. Rest, think it over. If you want to leave, I'll drive you to Cheyenne with enough to get settled. His kindness, after so much cruelty, nearly undid her. I don't take charity, Mr. Dawson. It's not charity, he said firmly. It's work for wages. A fair trade. She considered her non-existent options. 1 week to see if it suits us both, he nodded. Agreed. Sleep late if you need. I'll be checking the herd, but there's bread and jam in the pantry. As he turned to leave, she called, Mr. Dawson. He paused. Thank you. Not many would have done this. A flicker of sadness crossed his face. Rest, Miss Harper. Tomorrow's a new day. Alone, Abigail sat on the quilted bed, the candle's glow casting soft shadows. 1 week to decide her fate, to test this unexpected haven. As she drifted to sleep, she thought not of Samuel's rejection, but of Caleb's gray eyes, seeing her not as a pauper, but as a woman worthy of respect. Outside, the Wyoming sky cleared, stars blazing over a land that, for now, offered her sanctuary. Part 5, a new beginning. Morning light spilled through the curtains, waking Abigail to a room that felt less foreign. The quilt's intricate stitching, the wildflowers on the dresser, spoke of care she hadn't noticed in the dark. Outside, the Wind River Valley unfurled, hills rolling toward snow-capped peaks, pastures dotted with cattle, a stream glinting like silver. Caleb rode across the landscape, his ease in the saddle a testament to years on this land. Abigail dressed in her gray gown, now wrinkled but clean, and found a bundle outside her door. A blue cotton dress, wool stockings, sturdy boots, a comb, and lavender soap, Emily's things, left with quiet thoughtfulness. In the kitchen, a note from Caleb read, checking fences. Back by noon. Abigail brewed coffee and set to work, cleaning with a vigor that steadied her nerves. She dusted shelves lined with books, agriculture, history, Whitman's poetry, revealing a man of depth. By mid-morning, the house gleamed, and she was scrubbing the floor when a woman appeared in the doorway, her gray bun severe, her eyes sharp. So it's true, she said. Caleb's taken and Thornton's reject. Abigail stood, rag in hand. I beg your pardon, Hannah Wheeler, the woman said, stepping inside. I do laundry for the ranches. Heard you showed up with nothing but a bag, got turned out and landed here by sundown. Abigail's face burned. I'm Abigail Harper. Mr. Dawson hired me as housekeeper after I was caught in the storm. A temporary arrangement. Hannah's eyes flicked to Emily's dress. Those are Emily's clothes. Caleb doesn't lend them lightly. He offered them until mine are laundered, Abigail said firmly. Hannah studied her, then softened. You're not what I expected. I brought Caleb's washing. Where should it go? Abigail took the basket, grateful for the shift. I'll handle it. Thank you, Hannah paused. Caleb likes his shirts hung to dry. Says it keeps them crisp. She left, and Abigail resumed work, the gossip stinging but fueling her resolve. By noon the house was spotless, laundry hung and a stew simmered. Caleb returned, nodding approval. Hannah stopped by, Abigail said. She was worried about your reputation, he snorted. This town's got no claim on my name. Call me Caleb, he added. Mr. Dawson's too formal if you're living here. Caleb then, she agreed. I started dinner. I hope that's all right. More than all right, he said. But heads up, my ranch hands Tom and Luke are coming for supper. Saturday tradition. They worked together, Abigail chopping vegetables, Caleb kneading biscuit dough with surprising skill. You're handy with a knife, he noted. My mother taught me young, she said. Precision's second nature after years of dress patterns. They spoke of her past, her parents' deaths, the factory's closure. Caleb listened, his quiet empathy a balm. Tom and Luke arrived, Tom gruff and wary, Luke young and jovial. Smells like heaven, Luke declared, then spotted Abigail. Miss Harper's helping out, Caleb said, introducing her. Dinner was lively, Luke spinning tales of cattle drives, Tom thawing as Abigail asked about ranch operations. You know cattle? Tom asked. I know work, she replied. I respect what feeds us, Tom nodded impressed. After dinner, the men smoked on the porch, their voices drifting through the window. Town's talking, Tom said. Let him, Caleb replied. Thornton's not one to let this go, Tom warned. Abigail cleared the table, trying not to dwell on their words. She was a guest here, nothing more, yet. Part 6, a sister's return and a new threat. Days passed, Abigail settling into the ranch's rhythm. She tended the garden, mended clothes, and balanced Caleb's ledgers, her skills easing his burden. The town's whispers lingered, but Caleb's steady presence grounded her. Then a telegram arrived. Emily Dawson was returning, her visit urgent. Caleb's tension was palpable as they prepared the house, Abigail airing Emily's old room, her nerves mounting. What would Emily think of a stranger in her home? They rode to Redstone Creek to meet the stage, the town's eyes following them. Caleb offered his arm, a shield against the gossip, and Abigail took it head high. The stage arrived in a dust cloud, and Emily stepped out, slender, dark-haired, in a burgundy suit that screamed city wealth. Her resemblance to Caleb was striking, though her eyes held a guarded edge. Caleb, she greeted, her embrace brief. Her gaze landed on Abigail. And you are Abigail Harper, Caleb said. She's been helping at the ranch. Abigail shook Emily's hand. I've prepared your room, Miss Dawson. Emily's eyebrow arched. My room. And where do you sleep? The spare room, Abigail said evenly. I'm Caleb's housekeeper. The ride back was tense, Emily probing but avoiding her reasons for returning. At the ranch she softened, noting the garden's revival. Abigail's work, Caleb said. Over dinner, Emily revealed her purpose. A letter from Hannah had warned of Samuel Thornton's renewed campaign against Caleb, using Abigail's presence to question his character. Worse, Thornton was challenging a neighbor's will to seize land and water, rights crucial to Caleb's ranch. Emily produced documents proving Thornton's fraud, forged land deals, falsified cattle records, a bribed official. She'd gathered evidence in Denver, working for a judge, and had returned to file charges. Thornton's claim is shaky now, Emily said. "He'll be too busy fighting charges to bother you." But she raised another solution: marriage. If Caleb and Abigail wed, Thornton's accusations of impropriety would collapse, strengthening Caleb's legal standing. Abigail flushed, the idea both shocking and strangely compelling. Caleb dismissed it as impulsive, but the seed was planted. Part 7. A Choice and a Confrontation. The next morning, as Caleb and Emily met with the retiring judge, Samuel Thornton rode to the ranch. Abigail faced him at the door, refusing entry. "I'm offering $500, he said, "to leave today, no goodbyes." She laughed coldly. "You think I'm for sale?" His charm vanished. "Stay and Caleb loses everything." "No water, no ranch." His words shook her, but she held firm. "I'm not leaving." He left with a cryptic jab about Emily's Denver past, sowing doubt. When Caleb and Emily returned, Abigail confessed Thornton's visit. The judge had confirmed Thornton's legal maneuverings, but charges against him were imminent, weakening his claim. Alone with Caleb, Abigail admitted her feelings. "This place feels like home," she said. "You're why I want to stay." Caleb took her hands. "I don't want a marriage of convenience. I want you, Abigail, for who you are." Their mutual confession bridged the gap between them. Emily's evidence shifted the tide. Thornton fled to Denver, his influence crumbling. 2 weeks later, Abigail and Caleb married in a quiet ceremony, Emily beaming as witness. Abigail wore a blue gown she'd sewn, a silver locket from Caleb at her throat. Their vows, tailored to their partnership, promised mutual respect and shared dreams. At the ranch, a barn dance celebrated their union, the community embracing Abigail as one of their own. As stars lit the Wyoming sky, Abigail stood with Caleb, her new home stretching before her. Thornton had seen only her poverty, Caleb had seen her strength. In his respect, she'd found not just a husband, but a world of possibility, built one steadfast day at a time. Part 8. The First Snow. October painted the Wind River Valley in shades of amber and crimson, the cottonwoods along the stream shedding their leaves like golden coins. Abigail Dawson stood on the porch of the Dawson Ranch, a wool shawl draped over her shoulders, her breath visible in the crisp morning air. The silver locket Caleb had given her on their wedding day rested against her chest, a quiet reminder of the life they were building. 3 months had passed since she'd taken his name, and the ranch had become more than a sanctuary. It was her home, its rhythms as familiar as her own heartbeat. The garden she'd revived now lay dormant, its beds mulched against the coming frost. The house, once a bachelor's utilitarian space, bore her touch. Calico curtains brightened the windows, a braided rug warmed the parlor, and a new bookshelf held her growing collection of novels alongside Caleb's agricultural tomes. Yet, as the first snowflakes drifted from a leaden sky, Abigail felt a prickle of unease. Winter in Wyoming, she'd been warned, was a beast that tested even the hardiest souls. Inside, Caleb was at the kitchen table, poring over a ledger with Tom Thornton, his grizzled foreman. Luke Davis, the younger ranch hand, was out checking the herd, ensuring the cattle were ready for the drive to winter pastures. "We're short on hay," Tom said, his voice gruff. "Last summer's drought left the fields thin. If this winter's as bad as folks say, we'll need to buy extra or risk losing half the herd." Caleb rubbed his jaw, his gray eyes narrowing. "Buying hay means dipping into the reserve fund. We're still paying off the new fencing after Thornton's stunt with the water rights." Abigail set a pot of coffee on the stove, listening quietly. Samuel Thornton's fraud charges had driven him from Redstone Creek, but his influence lingered. His allies on the town council, led by Charles Dawson, the deputy's father, who owed Thornton gambling debts, had pushed for stricter regulations on water usage, a subtle jab at Caleb's ranch. The legal victory, thanks to Emily's evidence, had secured the Logan property's water rights, but it hadn't erased the town's divisions. Some still saw Caleb as an outsider, a man who defied Thornton's vision of progress. "We'll manage," Caleb said, his tone resolute. "We always do." He glanced at Abigail, a faint smile softening his features. "Right, Mrs. Dawson," she returned the smile, though her unease persisted. "We'll manage," she echoed, pouring coffee. "But we should plan for the worst. I can rework the budget, see where we can cut costs." Tom nodded approvingly. "You've got a head for numbers, ma'am. Better than most ranchers I know." As Tom left to join Luke, Abigail sat beside Caleb, studying the ledger. Her bookkeeping skills, honed in Boston's mercantile, had proven invaluable. "We could sell the extra calves early," she suggested. "The market in Cheyenne's strong before winter sets in." Caleb leaned back, considering. "Risky but smart. You're getting the hang of this ranching life." His hand brushed hers, a fleeting touch that still sparked warmth after months of marriage. Their partnership, born of necessity, had deepened into a quiet love, tested by shared work and mutual respect. But the snow falling outside whispered of challenges yet to come. Abigail remembered Hannah Wheeler's tales of blizzards that buried fences, of cattle lost to icy ravines, of families cut off from town for weeks. In Boston, winter meant coal shortages and crowded tenements. In Wyoming, it was a force of nature that could break a ranch as easily as a man's spirit. Part 9. Whispers of Retribution. A week later, the snow had thickened, blanketing the valley in a silence broken only by the wind's howl. Abigail was in the barn mending a harness when hoofbeats echoed in the yard. She stepped outside, expecting Luke or Tom, but found Charles Dawson dismounting, his deputy's badge glinting under his heavy coat. His weathered face, so like his son's, was set in a grimace. "Mrs. Dawson," he greeted, his tone formal but edged with something sharper. "Is Caleb around?" "He's checking the northern pasture," Abigail said, keeping her voice steady. "Can I help you?" Charles hesitated, his eyes flicking to the barn, then back to her. "Heard you're selling calves early. Risky move in this weather." "We're managing," she said, echoing Caleb's resolve. "What's your business here, Mr. Dawson?" He shifted, snow dusting his hat. "Folks in town are talking. Some say Caleb's pushing too hard, taking risks that could hurt the Valles ranchers. Thornton's friends ain't happy. He lost the Logan land." Abigail's spine stiffened. "Thornton lost that land because he broke the law. Caleb's risks are his own." Charles's grimace deepened. "Maybe, but Thornton's got allies in Cheyenne now. Lawyers, investors. They are saying Caleb's water rights might still be contested, legal or not. Thought you should know." He mounted his horse, tipping his hat. "Winter's no time for enemies, ma'am. Tell Caleb to watch his back." As he rode away, Abigail's unease crystallized into fear. Thornton's shadow hadn't faded. It had merely shifted, stretching from Redstone Creek to the territorial capital. She returned to the barn, her hands trembling as she finished the harness. Caleb needed to know, but more than that, they needed a plan. The ranch was their lifeline, its water and cattle the foundation of their future. Losing it would mean starting over, a prospect that chilled her more than the snow. That evening, as they sat by the fire, Abigail relayed Charles's warning. Caleb's face darkened, but his voice remained calm. "Thornton's like a coyote, slips away, then circles back. He's licking his wounds in Cheyenne, but he won't let this go." Abigail set down her mending, a pair of Caleb's gloves. "What can we do? If they challenge the water rights again, we fight," Caleb said simply. Emily's evidence buried Thornton once. We'll dig deeper if we have to. He reached for her hand. We're not alone in this, Abigail. Tom, Luke, even Hannah, they'll stand with us. She nodded, drawing strength from his certainty. I'll write to Emily in Denver. She might have contacts who can track Thornton's moves. Caleb squeezed her hand. That's my partner. Always thinking 3 steps ahead. The fire crackled, casting shadows that danced like the threats looming over them. But in Caleb's touch, Abigail found an anchor, a reminder that they'd faced worse and emerged stronger. Part 10, The Community's Call. The first blizzard hit in November, a white wall of snow and wind that confined them to the ranch for days. Abigail and Caleb worked tirelessly, shoveling paths to the barn, feeding the cattle, and reinforcing the house against drafts. The labor was grueling, but it bound them closer, their shared effort a testament to their vows. When the storm broke, leaving a glittering landscape under a clear sky, Luke arrived with news. Redstone Creek was planning a winter council meeting to discuss mutual aid for the season. Folks are worried, he said. Last winter wiped out 2 ranches. They're talking about pooling resources, hay, firewood, even labor. Caleb saw opportunity. If we show we're part of this community, Thornton's allies will have a harder time painting us as outsiders. Abigail agreed. We could offer our extra grain stores. It's not much, but it'll show goodwill. They prepared for the meeting, Abigail baking cornbread and Caleb loading sacks of grain onto the wagon. The ride to town was treacherous, the road slick with ice, but the community hall glowed with warmth, its potbelly stove roaring. Ranchers, shopkeepers, and families filled the room, their faces etched with the strain of winter's onset. Hannah Wheeler greeted them, her usual sharpness softened by gratitude. Your grain'll help, Abigail. Some folks lost everything in that storm. The meeting began, voices rising in debate over how to share resources. Charles Dawson was there, his presence a reminder of Thornton's lingering influence. When Caleb stood to pledge their grain and offer the ranch as a shelter for stranded travelers, murmurs of approval rippled through the crowd. Abigail spoke next, her Boston accent drawing curious glances. We're new to Redstone Creek, she said, but this valley is our home. We'll do whatever it takes to see us all through this winter. Her words struck a chord and several ranchers nodded, their skepticism thawing. But Charles stood, his voice cutting through the warmth. Generous offer, Dawson, but some say your water rights are still in question. If Cheyenne rules against you, this valley's cattle could suffer. The room tensed, eyes darting between Caleb and Charles. Caleb's jaw tightened, but Abigail spoke first, her voice clear. The water rights were settled legally, Mr. Dawson. If Thornton's allies want to stir trouble, they'll find this community stronger than their lies. A hush fell, then Hannah clapped, breaking the silence. Well said, Mrs. Dawson. Others joined in, their applause a small but significant victory. Charles sat, his expression sour, but the tide had turned. After the meeting, ranchers approached Caleb and Abigail, offering hay, labor, and promises of support. You've got grit, one old-timer said, shaking Abigail's hand. Reckon you're one of us now. Part 11, A Letter from Denver. Back at the ranch, a letter from Emily arrived, its Denver postmark a beacon in the snow. Abigail read it by the fire, Caleb at her side. Thornton's in trouble, Emily wrote. His lawyers are scrambling, but the fraud charges are sticking. My judge has friends in Cheyenne who say the territorial court's wary of touching his water rights claim now. It's too tainted. But watch for Charles Dawson. He's been meeting with Thornton's men, likely pushing their agenda locally. Caleb frowned. Charles is a problem, but he's no Thornton. If we keep the town on our side, he'll lose traction. Abigail nodded, folding the letter. The council meeting helped. People are starting to see us as part of Redstone Creek, not just Thornton's enemies. They planned their next steps. Caleb would strengthen ties with neighboring ranchers, while Abigail would organize a community barn dance for the winter solstice, a tradition she'd learned from Hannah. Folks need something to lift their spirits, she said. And it'll remind them we're here to stay. The solstice dance was a triumph, the barn strung with lanterns, a fiddler playing reels that echoed across the valley. Abigail wore her blue wedding gown, her laughter mingling with Caleb's as they spun across the hay-strewn floor. Ranchers and townsfolk joined in, their faces alight with the joy of community enduring winter's grip. Even Charles Dawson attended, his presence grudging but silent, a sign his influence was waning. Part 12, Spring's Promise. Winter stretched on, its challenges relentless, but Abigail and Caleb faced them as partners. They lost a few calves to the cold, but the herd survived, thanks to the community's shared resources. By March, the snow began to melt, revealing patches of green that promised spring. Charles Dawson's whispers faded, his credibility eroded by Thornton's legal woes and the town's growing loyalty to the Dawsons. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the Wind River Range in gold, Abigail rested her head on Caleb's shoulder. "I came here with nothing but a valise," she said, "and found everything I never dared dream." Caleb kissed her forehead, his arm around her. "You brought courage, Abigail. That's more than any fortune." They spoke of the future, expanding the garden, building a schoolhouse for the valley's children, maybe a trip to Denver to visit Emily. The ranch was their foundation, but their life together was its heart. As stars emerged in the Wyoming sky, Abigail Dawson looked out over the land she'd claimed, not through wealth or status, but through grit, love, and the man who'd seen her worth when others saw only lack. The West had tested her, but in its vastness, she'd forged a world of her own, one steadfast day at a time. Part 13, The Thaw. April 1876 brought a tentative warmth to the Wind River Valley, the snow melting into rivulets that swelled the streams and turned the ranch's yard to mud. Abigail Dawson stood in her garden, her boots sinking into the soft earth as she planted rows of peas and carrots, the seeds a quiet promise of renewal. The silver locket at her throat glinted in the morning sun, a symbol of the life she and Caleb had forged since their wedding the previous summer. The ranch was thriving, its cattle fattened on winter hay shared by the community, its fences mended, and its house now a true home, warmed by Abigail's care and Caleb's steady presence. Yet as she worked, Abigail's thoughts were restless. The winter had tested them, but it had also bound Redstone Creek's ranchers together, their mutual aid a bulwark against the season's cruelty. Samuel Thornton's fraud charges had driven him from town, and his ally Charles Dawson's influence had waned, but rumors persisted. A letter from Emily in Denver, received just days ago, warned of Thornton's activities in Cheyenne. He was rallying investors, claiming the territorial court had mishandled his case, and hinting at a return to reclaim his rightful place in the valley. "He's not done with you," Emily had written. "Stay vigilant." Caleb emerged from the barn, his Stetson tipped back, his gray eyes scanning the horizon. "You're up early," he called, striding toward her. "Couldn't sleep." Abigail brushed dirt from her hands, offering a wry smile. "Too many thoughts." "The garden's a good distraction." He crouched beside her, inspecting the neat rows. "You've got a gift for making things grow." This patch was nothing but weeds last year. His hand grazed hers, a familiar warmth that steadied her nerves. "What's on your mind, Abigail?" She hesitated, then shared Emily's letter. "Thornton's stirring trouble again." I can't shake the feeling he's planning something. Caleb's jaw tightened, but his voice remained calm. He's a snake, always slithering back. But he's got no legal ground left. The court's done with him. Maybe, Abigail said, but he's got money and spite. That's enough to cause problems. Caleb stood, offering his hand to pull her up. Then we'll face it together. Like we always do. Their partnership, forged in the crucible of last summer's trials, had grown into a love rooted in trust. Abigail had learned the rhythms of ranch life, branding calves, mending tack, balancing ledgers, while Caleb had embraced her ideas, from expanding the garden to hosting community events. But the specter of Thornton's return cast a shadow, reminding her how fragile their hard-won stability could be. Part 14. A Stranger in Town. A week later, as Abigail and Caleb drove their wagon to Redstone Creek for supplies, the town buzzed with an unfamiliar energy. The general store's porch was crowded, ranchers and shopkeepers whispering over a new arrival. Hannah Wheeler flagged them down, her gray bun bouncing as she hurried over. "You hear about the stranger?" she asked, eyes sharp. "Fancy fella from Cheyenne, calling himself Elias Kane. Says he's an investor looking to buy land." Caleb frowned, tethering the wagon. "Investor or Thornton's errand boy?" Hannah shrugged. "Could be both. He's been asking about water rights, especially yours. Charles Dawson's been trailing him like a puppy." Abigail's stomach nodded. Charles, despite his diminished status, still nursed a grudge, his gambling debts to Thornton tying him to the man's schemes. "Where's Kane now?" she asked. "At the saloon," Hannah said. "Holding court with anyone who will listen." Inside the general store, Abigail gathered flour and coffee while Caleb spoke with the clerk, a wiry man named Amos. "Kane's got cash," Amos muttered. "Offered to buy out the old Miller place, but he's really sniffing around your land, Caleb. Says the Logan water rights are disputed." Caleb's eyes narrowed. "Disputed by who?" "Thornton's got no claim." Amos leaned closer. "Kane's got papers, legal-looking ones. Says he's representing a consortium. I don't trust him." Back in the wagon, Abigail's mind raced. "This isn't just Thornton's spite," she said. "Kane's here to destabilize us, maybe buy up land cheap if we falter." Caleb nodded, his hands tight on the reins. "We need to know what he's planning. I'll talk to Tom and Luke, see if they've heard anything from the other ranchers." Abigail touched his arm. "And I'll organize a town meeting. If we rally the community, Kane won't find easy allies." That evening, Abigail penned flyers for a town hall, her neat handwriting promising a discussion on protecting our valley's future. She rode to neighboring ranches, her horse kicking up dust as she delivered the notices, her Boston accent softening as she spoke of unity. Ranchers who'd warmed to her during the winter pledged to attend, their trust in the Dawsons outweighing Thornton's fading influence. By week's end, the community hall was packed, lanterns casting a warm glow over weathered faces. Part 15. The Town Hall Showdown. The meeting began with Caleb addressing the crowd, his voice steady but urgent. "We've faced drought, blizzards, and Thornton schemes," he said. "Now this Kane fella's here, stirring trouble over water rights we've already won. I'm asking you to stand with us, not for my sake but for the valley's." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room, but Charles Dawson stood, his badge glinting. "Hold on, Dawson. Kane's got documents proving the Logan will was coerced. You can't ignore that." Abigail rose, her blue dress catching the lantern light. "Mr. Dawson, those documents come from a man charged with fraud. Thornton's using Kane to divide us, to weaken the valley so his investors can swoop in." Her words, clear and unflinching, drew nods from the crowd. Hannah Wheeler clapped, her voice cutting through the tension. Abigail's right. Thornton's a liar, and Kane's his puppet. We don't need Cheyenne vultures picking our bones. Before Charles could respond, the hall's doors swung open, and Elias Kane strode in, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the rancher's denim. His dark hair was slicked back, his smile polished but cold. "I hear my name," he said, his voice smooth as whiskey. "I'm no vulture, folks. I'm here to invest in your future, schools, roads, progress. But water rights need settling, and the Dawson claim's shaky." Caleb stepped forward, his gray eyes like flint. "My claim's backed by Judge Parker and the territorial court. Your papers are Thornton's lies, dressed up in fancy ink." Kane's smile didn't waver. "We'll let the courts decide. I've filed a petition in Cheyenne to review the Logan will. Until then, I'm offering to buy land from anyone feeling the pinch." He glanced at Charles, who nodded subtly. The room erupted in shouts, some ranchers tempted by Kane's cash, others loyal to Caleb. Abigail seized the moment, climbing onto a chair. "Listen," she called, her voice ringing. "This valley's ours, our sweat, our homes, our future. Kane's offering money, but he's buying your freedom. Stand together and we'll outlast him, just like we outlasted winter." Her passion ignited the crowd, their cheers drowning out Kane's retort. Charles slunk to the back, his influence crumbling. Kane left with a curt nod, but his eyes promised trouble. After the meeting, ranchers crowded around Abigail and Caleb, pledging support. "You've got a fire in you, Mrs. Dawson," an old rancher said, grinning. "Reckon Thornton picked the wrong fight." Part 16, A Personal Reckoning. Back at the ranch, Abigail and Caleb sat by the fire, the night quiet save for the stream's gentle rush. "You were a force tonight," Caleb said, his voice warm with pride. "The whole valley's talking about Abigail Dawson, the Boston seamstress who faced down a Cheyenne snake." Abigail laughed, but her eyes were serious. "I was scared, Caleb. Kane's not like Thornton, he's colder, smarter. What if the court reopens the case?" Caleb took her hands, his calloused fingers grounding her. "Then we fight like we always have. Emily's digging into Kane's consortium. If there's dirt, she'll find it." Abigail nodded, but a deeper worry surfaced. "Caleb, this life we're building, it's everything I wanted. But sometimes I wonder if I'm enough for it. I'm not a rancher's daughter born to this land." His gaze softened and he cupped her face. "Abigail, you're more than enough. You turned this house into a home, this ranch into a legacy. You're my partner, not because you were born to it, but because you chose it." Tears pricked her eyes, not from doubt but from the depth of his faith in her. She leaned into him, their kiss a reaffirmation of their vows, partnership, resilience, love. "I chose you," she whispered. "And I'd choose you again every time." The fire crackled, its warmth a shield against the uncertainties ahead. Part 17, The Court's Verdict. Weeks later, a telegram from Emily arrived, its words a lifeline. Kane's consortium linked to Thornton's fraud. Evidence sent to Cheyenne court. Case collapsing. Abigail read it aloud, relief washing over her. Caleb pulled her into a hug, his laughter echoing through the house. "Your sister's a lion," Abigail said, grinning. "She's a Dawson," Caleb replied. "Stubborn as they come." The Cheyenne court dismissed Kane's petition, citing Thornton's tainted reputation and lack of credible evidence. Kane vanished from Redstone Creek, his promises of progress forgotten. Charles Dawson resigned his deputy post, his credibility shattered. The valley rallied around the Dawsons, their ranch a symbol of defiance against outside greed. Part 18, A Legacy Planted. By June, the Wind River Valley bloomed, its pastures lush with grass, its streams sparkling under a boundless sky. Abigail's garden thrived, its vegetables feeding the ranch and neighbors alike. She and Caleb began plans for a schoolhouse, funded by the community's shared prosperity, a testament to their vision of a lasting home. One evening, as they walked the stream's edge, Abigail paused, her hand in Caleb's. "I came here with a valise and a broken dream," she said. "Now I have a world because of you." Caleb drew her close, his gray eyes alight with love. "You built this world, Abigail. I just gave you the land to stand on." They stood together, the valley stretching before them, its beauty a mirror of their hard-won joy. As the 4th of July approached, Redstone Creek planned a celebration. Fireworks, a barn dance, a feast to honor the valley's resilience. Abigail and Caleb would host, their ranch the heart of the community. Under the Wyoming stars, Abigail Dawson knew she'd found her place, not just in Caleb's arms, but in a land that had tested her, shaped her, and claimed her as its own. Part 19, the 4th of July. The 4th of July dawned clear and bright over the Wind River Valley, the sky a deep Wyoming blue that seemed to stretch forever. Abigail Dawson stood on the porch of the Dawson Ranch, her blue gown catching the morning breeze as she surveyed the preparations for Redstone Creek's celebration. Lanterns hung from the barn's rafters, tables groaned under platters of cornbread, roast beef, and apple pies, and a makeshift dance floor of packed earth awaited the fiddler's call. The community had rallied, each family contributing food, music, or labor, a testament to the unity forged through winter's trials and spring's victories. Caleb emerged from the house, his Stetson tilted back, a rare grin lighting his gray eyes. "You've outdone yourself, Abigail," he said, wrapping an arm around her waist. "This valley hasn't seen a party like this since the railroad came through." She leaned into him, her silver locket glinting at her throat. "It's not just me. Everyone's here because we stood together, against Thornton, against Kane, against the odds." He kissed her forehead, his touch a quiet anchor. "And because of you, Mrs. Dawson. You're the heart of it." By noon, the ranch buzzed with life. Ranchers in their Sunday best mingled with shopkeepers and miners, children chased each other through the grass, and Hannah Wheeler presided over the dessert table, her sharp tongue softened by the festive spirit. The fiddler struck up a lively reel, and couples spun across the dance floor, their laughter mingling with the scent of sagebrush and barbecue. Abigail and Caleb joined the dance, their steps sure despite the uneven ground, their joy a beacon for the valley. As dusk fell, fireworks burst over the valley, their colors painting the sky in celebration of independence, not just the nation's, but Redstone Creek's, freed from Samuel Thornton's shadow and Elias Kane's schemes. Abigail stood with Caleb, her hand in his, watching the sparks fade. "This is what we fought for," she said softly. "A home, a community, a future." He squeezed her hand. "And we're just getting started." But even as the valley celebrated, a new challenge loomed, one that would test their resilience in ways neither could foresee. Part 20, the schoolhouse dream. The success of the 4th of July galvanized Abigail and Caleb's vision for a schoolhouse, a place to educate the valley's children and cement Redstone Creek's future. By mid-July, they'd secured pledges from ranchers and townsfolk, enough to buy lumber and hire a carpenter from Cheyenne. Abigail took charge of the project, her organizational skills honed in Boston's mercantile, now applied to blueprints and budgets. She envisioned a one-room school with a bell tower, its walls lined with books, a haven for learning in a land where survival often trumped education. Caleb, meanwhile, scouted a site on the ranch's eastern edge, near the stream where willows swayed. "It's close enough for town kids to walk," he said, driving a stake into the ground, "and the water will keep it cool in summer." Abigail nodded, sketching the layout in her notebook. We'll need a teacher. I wrote to Emily, she might know someone in Denver. Caleb grinned. You're already planning classes, aren't you? Someone has to, she teased, though her heart swelled at his pride. The community rallied, with Tom Thornton and Luke Davis leading work crews to clear the site, while Hannah organized a sewing circle to make curtains for the school's windows. But as construction began, a stranger arrived in Redstone Creek, his presence stirring unease. Margaret Hale, a school inspector from the Territorial Board in Cheyenne, was a stern woman in her 50s, her gray dress as unyielding as her demeanor. She'd come, she said, to ensure the school met territorial standards, but her questions focused on the Dawson Ranch, its water rights, its finances, its role in the valley. She's no ordinary inspector, Hannah warned Abigail over tea at the general store. Word is, she's tied to Thornton's old investors. They're sore about losing the Logan land and want to make trouble. Abigail's stomach tightened. Thornton's gone, Kane's gone. Why can't they leave us be? Hannah patted her hand. You're a threat, Abigail. You and Caleb built something they can't buy, a community that trusts you. That evening, Abigail shared Hannah's warning with Caleb. His jaw clenched, but his voice was steady. If Hale's here to sabotage us, she'll find we don't scare easy. The school's for the valley, not just us. Abigail nodded, though doubt gnawed at her. The schoolhouse was her dream, a way to give back to the community that had embraced her. If it failed, it wouldn't just be a building lost, it would be a blow to the valley's spirit. Part 21, a personal milestone. Amid the schoolhouse preparations, Abigail faced a personal revelation. For weeks she'd felt a subtle shift, mornings tinged with nausea, a weariness that lingered despite rest. At first she attributed it to the project's demands, but when Hannah noticed her pallor during a sewing circle, she pulled Abigail aside. You're expecting, aren't you? She asked, her eyes twinkling. Abigail blinked, the possibility dawning like sunrise. I hadn't thought, Hannah chuckled. Get yourself to Doc Miller. He'll confirm it. The doctor's visit confirmed Hannah's suspicion. Abigail was 3 months pregnant, the child due in early spring. She rode home in a daze, joy and fear warring within her. A child, hers and Caleb's, would be a new chapter, but the timing, with the schoolhouse and Thornton's lingering shadow, felt daunting. That evening she waited until they were alone by the fire, the summer night soft with crickets. Caleb, she said, her voice trembling, we're going to have a baby. His gray eyes widened, then softened with a tenderness that stole her breath. A baby. He pulled her into his arms, his laughter warm against her hair. Abigail, that's the best news I've ever heard. But as he held her, she sensed his own flicker of worry. It's a lot, she admitted. The school hailed the ranch. We'll handle it, he said, his voice firm. You, me, and this little one, we're a team. His confidence steadied her, and they spent the night dreaming of their child, of a future where the schoolhouse bell rang over a thriving valley. Part 22, the Inspector's Challenge. Margaret Hale's inspections grew more intrusive, her reports nitpicking the schoolhouse's foundation, its proximity to the stream, even the Dawsons' finances. At a town meeting, she presented her findings, her voice clipped. The Territorial Board questions whether Redstone Creek can sustain a school, she said. The Dawson Ranch's water rights, still under scrutiny, raised concerns about long-term viability. The crowd bristled, but Hale held up a hand. I recommend delaying construction until Cheyenne reviews the water rights again. Caleb stood, his presence commanding. Those rights were settled by Judge Parker and the court. This is harassment, plain and simple. Abigail joined him, her pregnancy lending her a quiet fierceness. Miss Hale, this school is for our children, our future. If Thornton's investors sent you to scare us, they'll find this valley doesn't bend." Her words, amplified by her evident strength, sparked applause, but Hale's smile was cold. "The board will decide," she said, and left for Cheyenne. The valley rallied, work on the schoolhouse continuing despite Hale's threats. Abigail, though slowed by morning sickness, organized a fundraiser, a cattle auction to cover costs. Ranchers donated calves, and the event drew buyers from as far as Laramie, the proceeds ensuring the school's completion. But a telegram from Emily brought grim news. Hale's report had prompted the board to schedule a hearing on the water rights, with a new judge rumored to favor Thornton's old allies. Part 23, The Hearing and a Birth. In December, as snow dusted the valley, Abigail and Caleb traveled to Cheyenne, Abigail's pregnancy now visible beneath her wool coat. The hearing was a tense affair, the courtroom packed with ranchers who'd made the journey to support them. Emily, sharp in her Denver suit, presented new evidence, documents linking Hale's board to Thornton's investors, exposing their bias. Caleb testified with calm authority, detailing the ranch's contributions to the valley, while Abigail spoke of the schoolhouse, her voice ringing with conviction. "This isn't just about water," she said. "It's about a community that won't be bullied." The judge, swayed by Emily's evidence and the valley's unity, dismissed the challenge, affirming the Dawsons' water rights. The courtroom erupted in cheers, and Abigail clutched Caleb's hand, relief washing over her. Back in Redstone Creek, the schoolhouse was completed, its bell ringing for the first time as children filed in, a young teacher from Denver leading the class. In March 1877, Abigail gave birth to a daughter, named Clara after her mother. The labor was long, but Hannah and Doc Miller guided her through, and Caleb's steady presence anchored her. Holding Clara, her tiny fingers curling around Abigail's locket, Abigail felt a joy deeper than any she'd known. Caleb kissed her forehead, his eyes bright with tears. "You're a miracle, both of you," he whispered. Part 24, A Valley's Future. By summer, the schoolhouse thrived, its bell a daily anthem over the valley. Clara grew strong, her laughter filling the ranch, and Abigail resumed her garden, teaching the valley's children to plant seeds alongside their lessons. Caleb expanded the herd, the ranch's prosperity a beacon for Redstone Creek. Thornton's name faded, his investors retreating, and the valley flourished, its unity a legacy of the Dawsons' courage. One evening, as they sat on the porch, Clara asleep in Abigail's arms, Caleb took her hand. "You came here with a valise," he said, "and built a world." Abigail smiled, her heart full. "We built it together, Caleb. And we'll keep building for Clara, for the valley, for us." Under the Wyoming stars, the Wind River Valley stretched before them, its promise as boundless as their love, forged through trials and sealed by a partnership that had turned a stranger's hope into a lasting home. Part 25, A Bountiful Harvest. The autumn of 1877 draped the Wind River Valley in hues of gold and scarlet, the cottonwoods along the stream blazing like lanterns against the Wyoming sky. Abigail Dawson knelt in her garden, harvesting the last of the season's bounty, carrots, potatoes, and pumpkins that would feed the ranch through winter. Clara, now 6 months old, gurgled in a woven basket nearby, her tiny hands grasping at a rag doll Abigail had sewn. The silver locket at Abigail's throat caught the sunlight, a symbol of the life she and Caleb had built since her arrival in Redstone Creek 2 years prior. The ranch thrived, its pastures lush with cattle, its barn stocked with hay, and its house a warm haven of love and labor. The schoolhouse, completed the previous spring, rang with the laughter of children, its bell a daily anthem of progress. Abigail had taken on a role as the school's unofficial librarian, curating books donated from Denver and teaching the older children to read poetry, her Boston roots blending with the valley's rugged spirit. Caleb, meanwhile, had expanded the herd, his reputation as a fair and steadfast rancher drawing buyers from as far as Laramie. Yet as Abigail filled her basket, a familiar unease stirred. The valley's prosperity had attracted attention, not all of it welcome. A letter from Emily Dawson, now a legal assistant in Denver, had arrived the previous week, warning of a new threat. A railroad company, backed by Cheyenne investors with ties to Samuel Thornton's old allies, was surveying the Wind River Valley for a new line. The railroad promised wealth, easier access to markets, faster travel, but its route threatened to cut through prime grazing land, including the Dawson Ranch. "They're calling it progress," Emily wrote, "but it's a land grab dressed up in steel. Watch for their agents." Caleb rode up from the pastures, his Stetson dusted with frost, his gray eyes bright with the day's work. "Clara's keeping you company, I see," he said, dismounting to scoop his daughter into his arms. Clara squealed, her chubby hands tugging his beard, and Abigail laughed, the sound easing her worry. "She's my best helper," she said, standing to kiss him. "Though she's more interested in dirt than vegetables." Caleb grinned, but his gaze sharpened as he noticed her expression. "Something's on your mind." "Emily's letter." She nodded, brushing dirt from her apron. "The railroad worries me. It could split the valley, take our land, our water. We fought too hard to lose it now." Caleb set Clara back in her basket, his jaw tightening. "They'll have to go through us first." The valleys united. Thornton and Kane learned that the hard way. His confidence was a bomb, but Abigail knew this fight would be different. A railroad wasn't a single man's vendetta. It was a force of industry, backed by money and power beyond Redstone Creek's reach. Part 26, The Railroad's Shadow. By late September, the railroad's presence became tangible. Surveyors in crisp suits appeared in Redstone Creek, their theodolites glinting as they mapped the valley's contours. Their leader, a slick-talking man named Vincent Caldwell, held court at the saloon, promising jobs, prosperity, and a new era for the valley. But his maps, displayed at the general store, showed a line slicing through the Dawson Ranch's northern pasture, threatening the stream that fed their cattle and the schoolhouse's well. Abigail and Caleb called a town meeting, the community hall packed with ranchers, shopkeepers, and miners, their faces etched with concern. Hannah Wheeler, her gray bun as severe as ever, stood beside them, her voice sharp. "Caldwell's offering money to anyone who will sell," she said. "But once that railroad's built, they'll control our water, our land, our future." Caleb took the floor, his presence steadying the crowd. "We've built this valley with our hands," he said. "We've faced drought, blizzards, and Thornton schemes. We don't need a railroad to tell us what progress looks like." Abigail spoke next, Clara balanced on her hip, her voice clear despite the weight of motherhood. "The railroad wants our land, but they don't know our heart. The schoolhouse, our ranches, our homes, that's the progress we've fought for. If we stand together, we can reroute their line, protect what's ours." Her words sparked applause, but a few ranchers, tempted by Caldwell's cash, shifted uncomfortably. Amos, the store clerk, whispered to Caleb, "Some folks are struggling after last year's losses. They might sell." That evening, as Abigail rocked Clara to sleep, she shared her fears with Caleb. "If even one rancher sells, it weakens us all. Caldwell's counting on that." Caleb stoked the fire, his expression grim. "We need to show the valley what's at stake. A rally maybe, something to remind folks why we fight." Abigail nodded, her mind racing. "A harvest festival at the schoolhouse. We'll celebrate what we've built, show the children's progress, prove the valley's worth saving." Caleb kissed her hand, his gray eyes warm. You're a force, Abigail Dawson. Let's do it. Part 27, The Harvest Festival. The Harvest Festival, held in early October, transformed the schoolhouse into a beacon of community pride. Lanterns glowed along the stream, tables brimmed with pies, smoked ham and Abigail's pumpkin bread, and the fiddler played reels that echoed across the valley. Children from the school performed a play Abigail had written, a tale of pioneers taming the West, their voices ringing with hope. Clara, cradled in Hannah's arms, clapped at the sight, her laughter a melody of innocence. Ranchers and townsfolk mingled, their resolve strengthened by the school's success. Abigail, in a new green dress she'd sewn, addressed the crowd, her pregnancy a distant memory but her strength undimmed. "This school, this valley, is our legacy," she said. "The railroad offers money, but we've built something richer, community, family, home. Let's tell Caldwell we won't sell." Cheers erupted, and even the wavering ranchers joined in, their doubts drowned by unity. But Vincent Caldwell attended, his suit pristine amid the denim and calico. He approached Abigail and Caleb after the speeches, his smile oily. "Impressive show, Mrs. Dawson," he said. "But the railroad's coming, with or without your consent. Eminent domain's a powerful tool." Caleb's hand tightened on Abigail's arm, his voice low. "Try it, Caldwell. You'll find this valley's tougher than your Cheyenne bosses." Caldwell's smile didn't falter. "We'll see. Enjoy your festival, it may be your last." His words lingered like a chill, but the festival's success galvanized the valley. Ranchers pledged to reject Caldwell's offers, and Abigail organized a petition to the territorial governor, demanding the railroad reroute its line. Emily, responding to a desperate letter, arrived from Denver, her legal expertise a weapon against the railroad's might. "Caldwell's bosses are overreaching," she said, poring over documents at the ranch. "If we prove the valley's economic value, the governor might intervene." Part 28, A Family's Strength. As the railroad fight intensified, Abigail and Caleb faced the daily joys and challenges of parenthood. Clara's first steps, taken on the parlor rug, filled them with pride, but her sleepless nights tested their endurance. Abigail, balancing motherhood with the schoolhouse and the petition, sometimes felt stretched thin, her Boston dreams of poetry and quiet evenings fading under the weight of frontier life. One night, as Clara wailed with a fever, Abigail's exhaustion spilled over. "I love this life, Caleb," she said, tears in her eyes, "but sometimes I wonder if I'm enough for it all." Caleb took Clara, rocking her gently, his voice a steady anchor. "You're more than enough, Abigail. You're the heart of this ranch, this valley, this family. We'll get through this together." He handed her a small leather journal, a gift he'd ordered from Cheyenne. "For your poetry, your thoughts. You're still that Boston girl, and I want her to shine." The gesture, simple but profound, rekindled her spirit, and she began writing again, her verses capturing the valley's beauty and resilience. Clara's fever broke, and Abigail's resolve returned. She and Emily drafted the petition, detailing the valley's ranches, school, and community strength, while Caleb rallied ranchers to testify in Cheyenne. The fight was personal now, not just for their land but for Clara's future, for the children who'd learn in the schoolhouse, for the valley that had become their soul. Part 29, The Governor's Decision. In November, Abigail, Caleb, and Emily traveled to Cheyenne. Clara left in Hannah's care. The governor's hearing was a battleground, Caldwell's lawyers arguing for the railroad's economic benefits, while Emily presented the valley's petition, backed by ranchers' testimonies and economic data. Abigail spoke last, her voice steady despite the crowded room. "The Wind River Valley isn't just land," she said. "It's homes, families, dreams. The railroad can thrive without destroying us." Reroute the line and let us keep what we've built. The governor, moved by the valley's unity and Emily's evidence of the railroad's questionable ties to Thornton's investors, ordered a reroute, sparing the Dawson Ranch and the valley's core. Caldwell's face twisted in defeat, and the ranchers cheered, their victory a testament to 2 years of resilience. Back in Redstone Creek, the schoolhouse bell rang in celebration, children waving flags crafted in class. Part 30, A Legacy Endures. By spring 1878, the Wind River Valley flourished, the railroad's new route skirting its edges, bringing trade without destruction. The schoolhouse grew, a second room added for older students, and Abigail taught poetry, her journal now filled with verses of love and land. Clara toddled through the garden, her laughter a daily joy, and Abigail and Caleb began planning for a second child, their family a mirror of the valley's growth. One evening, as they sat on the porch, the stream glinting under a crimson sunset, Caleb took Abigail's hand. "You came here with nothing but a valise," he said, "and gave me a world." She smiled, Clara asleep in her lap. "We gave each other a world, Caleb. And we'll keep building it for Clara, for the valley, for us." The Wyoming stars blazed above, their light a promise of endurance, of a love and legacy forged through trials, rooted in a land that had claimed them as its own. Part 31, A Quiet Winter's Dawn. The winter of 1878 settled over the Wind River Valley like a heavy quilt, its snows blanketing the Wyoming landscape in a hush broken only by the wind's mournful howl. Abigail Dawson stood in the ranch's kitchen, her hands kneading dough for biscuits, the warmth of the stove a bulwark against the frost etching the windows. Clara, now a lively toddler of nearly 2, played at her feet, stacking wooden blocks Caleb had carved, her laughter a melody that filled the house. The silver locket at Abigail's throat, a gift from their wedding day, rested against her heart, a reminder of the trials they'd overcome and the love that had grown stronger with each season. The Dawson Ranch was a beacon of prosperity, its cattle sheltered in sturdy barns, its garden beds mulched for spring, and its schoolhouse a thriving hub where valley children learned to read, write, and dream. Abigail's role as librarian had expanded, her poetry readings now a weekly event that drew parents as well as students, blending her Boston refinement with the frontier's grit. Caleb, respected as a leader among ranchers, had brokered a cooperative with neighboring spreads, sharing resources to ensure no family faced winter alone. The railroad, rerouted the previous spring, now brought trade without threatening their land, and Samuel Thornton's name had faded to a cautionary tale. Yet as Abigail glanced out the window at the gathering clouds, a prickle of unease stirred. Wyoming winters were merciless, and old-timers like Hannah Wheeler spoke of blizzards that could bury a valley in hours, testing even the strongest communities. A letter from Emily in Denver, received just before the first snow, had carried a different warning: a new territorial tax on water usage, pushed by Cheyenne investors with distant ties to Thornton's old network, loomed as a potential burden for ranchers. "It's not aimed at you specifically," Emily wrote, "but it'll hit hard if the valley's weakened. Stay strong." Caleb entered, snow dusting his Stetson, his gray eyes bright from checking the herd. "Clara's building a fort, I see," he said, scooping his daughter into a hug. She squealed, clutching a block, and Abigail smiled, though her worry lingered. "She's got your stubbornness," she teased, setting the biscuits to bake. "Everything all right out there?" Caleb nodded, brushing snow from his coat. "Herd settled, but Tom says the sky's got that look, big storm coming." He met her gaze, reading her unease. "Emily's letter still bothering you?" She sighed, wiping flour from her hands. "The tax, the weather, it feels like we're never quite free of trouble." Caleb took her hands, his calloused fingers grounding her. We've faced worse, Thornton Kane, the railroad. Whatever comes, we'll handle it, you and me. His certainty steadied her, and she leaned into him, Clara babbling between them. Their family, small but fierce, was the heart of their strength, a foundation as solid as the ranch itself. Part 32. The Blizzard's Fury. The storm struck 3 days later, a white tempest that roared down from the Wind River Range, its winds driving snow so thick it erased the horizon. Abigail and Caleb worked frantically, securing the barn, bringing the cattle to sheltered pens, and reinforcing the house's shutters. Clara, sensing the tension, clung to Abigail's skirts, her wide eyes tracking the flurry outside. "Mama, snow big," she said, and Abigail kissed her forehead, forcing a smile. "Just a little adventure, sweetheart. We'll be fine." By nightfall, the blizzard was unrelenting, the house creaking under the wind's assault. Abigail kept the fire roaring, her poetry journal open on the table as she jotted lines to calm her nerves. "Snow falls like fate, but we stand, rooted in this wild land." Caleb, returning from a final check of the barn, brought grim news. "Lost a few calves in the far pasture," he said, his face etched with exhaustion. "And the stream's freezing. If it ices over, we'll lose water for the herd." Abigail's heart sank. The stream, vital to their ranch and the schoolhouse, had been their lifeline through every crisis. They took turns through the night, stoking the fire and checking the windows, Clara sleeping fitfully in her crib. By dawn, the storm showed no sign of abating, and a knock at the door startled them. Tom Thornton, bundled in furs, stood shivering, his beard crusted with ice. "Half the val is cut off," he said, stamping snow from his boots. "Luke's stuck at the Miller place, and the schoolhouse roof's buckling under the weight. We need hands to dig out and reinforce it." Abigail and Caleb exchanged a glance, their decision unspoken. "We'll go," Caleb said, pulling on his coat. Abigail hesitated, glancing at Clara. "I'll stay with her," she said, but Tom shook his head. "We need you, Abigail. Your schoolhouse plans what's holding folks together. Hannah's at the church, she'll watch Clara." Reluctantly, Abigail bundled Clara in blankets, kissed her, and handed her to Hannah at the church, where families huddled for warmth. "Be safe, Mama," Clara said, her small voice piercing Abigail's heart. Part 33. The Val's Stand. The trek to the schoolhouse was a battle against the storm, snow stinging Abigail's face as she and Caleb joined a dozen ranchers, their lanterns flickering like stars in the white void. The schoolhouse, its bell silent, sagged under a drift that threatened to collapse the roof. Abigail's chest tightened, her dream, the Val's future, hung in the balance. "We shovel in shifts," Caleb shouted over the wind, organizing the group. "Keep the roof clear, then brace the walls." They worked through the day, their hands numb, their breath steaming. Abigail, smaller than the men but fierce, climbed ladders to clear snow, her determination inspiring the others. "This is our school," she called, her voice carrying through the gale. "We won't let it fall." Ranchers who'd once doubted her, swayed by Thornton's lies, now followed her lead, their shovels a rhythm of defiance. By evening, the roof was clear, and Tom's crew nailed beams to reinforce the structure, the schoolhouse standing firm against the storm. But the blizzard's toll was heavy. Word came that the Miller Ranch had lost half its herd, and the town's general store had flooded when the stream overflowed its icy banks. Abigail and Caleb returned home exhausted, Clara safe in Hannah's arms. As they warmed by the fire, Hannah shared more news. The territorial tax, set to take effect in spring, would hit hardest if the Val's ranches were weakened by the storm. "Cheyenne's watching," Hannah said. "They think we'll break." Abigail's resolve hardened. "They're wrong," she said, rocking Clara. "We'll rebuild stronger than before." Caleb nodded, his gray eyes steely. We'll call a council meeting once the storm clears. Pool resources, help the Millers fix the store. And we'll fight that tax. His hand found hers, their partnership a spark in the darkness. Part 34. A Community Reborn. The blizzard raged for 3 days, then broke, leaving a glittering landscape under a sky of piercing blue. Redstone Creek emerged battered but unbowed, its people digging out homes, rescuing stranded cattle, and repairing the town. The schoolhouse, thanks to the valley's efforts, stood proud, its bell ringing to call children back to class. Abigail resumed her poetry readings, her verses now infused with the storm's lessons. We bend, but do not break, our roots deep in this snowbound land. The council meeting, held in the church, was a testament to the valley's spirit. Caleb proposed a relief fund, with the Dawson Ranch donating grain and hay to rebuild the Miller herd. Abigail suggested a cooperative store, owned by the community, to replace the flooded general store, ensuring no single family bore the loss. Ranchers, inspired by her vision, pledged lumber, labor, and funds, their unity a shield against Cheyenne's tax threat. Even Amos, the store clerk, offered to manage the cooperative, his gruff demeanor softened by the valley's resolve. Emily arrived from Denver, her legal mind a weapon against the tax. "It's a blunt tool," she said, spreading documents on the Dawson's kitchen table. "Designed to squeeze small ranchers, favor big investors. But I've found a loophole. If we prove the valley's economic output, we can petition for an exemption." Abigail and Caleb worked with Emily, compiling data on the schoolhouse's impact, the ranch cooperative's growth, and the railroad's trade benefits. The petition, signed by every rancher in the valley, was a bold challenge to Cheyenne's power. Part 35. A Family's Joy. Amid the recovery, Abigail and Caleb found moments of joy in Clara's growth. Her vocabulary bloomed her questions. "Why snowfall, Papa?" sparking laughter and wonder. Abigail taught her to plant seeds in a small garden patch, Clara's tiny hands patting soil with earnest care. Caleb crafted a sled, pulling her through the snow, her giggles echoing across the ranch. These moments, simple but profound, were the heart of their life, a reminder of why they fought. One evening, as Clara slept, Abigail felt a familiar flutter, a new life stirring within her. She shared the news with Caleb by the fire, her journal open to a new poem. A seed in winter, blooming unseen, our love's next chapter. His eyes lit with joy, tempered by the weight of their challenges. "Another Dawson," he said, pulling her close. "We'll make this valley safe for them both." The promise, sealed with a kiss, was a vow as binding as their wedding day. Part 36. A Victory Hard Won. In February 1879, the territorial governor responded to the valley's petition, granting a tax exemption based on its economic contributions and community strength. The decision, announced at a town meeting, sparked cheers, the schoolhouse bell ringing in triumph. Emily, staying to celebrate, raised a toast to Redstone Creek, where grit outshines gold. Abigail, her pregnancy just beginning to show, stood with Caleb, Clara on her hip, their family a symbol of the valley's endurance. The cooperative store opened, its shelves stocked by ranchers' contributions, and the Miller Ranch rebuilt, its herd thriving. The schoolhouse added a library wing, Abigail's poetry collection its centerpiece, drawing visitors from Cheyenne who marveled at the valley's spirit. Thornton's legacy, once a shadow, was buried under the weight of Redstone Creek's success. Part 37. A Legacy Eternal. By summer 1879, the Wind River Valley glowed with life, its ranches prosperous, its school a beacon of learning, its people bound by a shared history of defiance. Abigail gave birth to a son, named Thomas after Caleb's father, his cries joining Clara's laughter in the ranch's bustling heart. The family grew, as did the valley, new settlers arriving, drawn by tales of a community that stood against storms and greed. One evening, as the sun dipped below the Wind River range, Abigail and Caleb sat on the porch, Clara and Thomas playing in the grass. "You came here with a valise," Caleb said, his hand in hers, "and built a legacy." Abigail smiled, her locket catching the twilight. "We built it together, Caleb, for our children, for this valley, for every dream we dared to hold." The Wyoming stars emerged, their light a testament to a love and community forged through fire, snow, and time, a world that would endure as long as the land itself. Part 38. A Thriving Valley. The summer of 1879 bathed the Wind River Valley in golden light, the Wyoming plains alive with wildflowers and the hum of bees. Abigail Dawson stood outside the schoolhouse, her green dress fluttering as she watched Clara, now 2.5, chase a butterfly through the grass. Thomas, 4 months old, slept in a sling against her chest, his soft breaths a quiet rhythm. The silver locket at her throat, a wedding gift from Caleb, gleamed in the sun, a symbol of the life they'd forged since her arrival in Redstone Creek 3 years ago. The Dawson Ranch was a cornerstone of the valley's prosperity, its cattle grazing lush pastures, its garden feeding families, and its cooperative store a model for communal resilience. The schoolhouse, now with a library wing, drew visitors from Cheyenne, its bell ringing daily to call children to lessons. Abigail's poetry readings had become a cultural touchstone, her verses blending Boston elegance with frontier grit, while Caleb's leadership in the ranchers' cooperative ensured fair trade and shared resources. The railroad, rerouted to skirt the valley, brought prosperity without destruction, and the territorial tax exemption secured the previous winter had solidified Redstone Creek's independence. Yet as Abigail guided Clara back to the schoolhouse, a new unease stirred. The valley's success had attracted newcomers, settlers seeking land, merchants eyeing trade, and speculators whispering of mineral deposits in the hills. A letter from Emily Dawson, now a prominent legal advocate in Denver, had arrived days earlier, warning of a growing divide. "The newcomers are splitting the valley," she wrote. "Some welcome the growth, others fear it'll erode what you've built. Watch for a man named Silas Reed. He's stirring trouble with talk of mining rights." Caleb rode up, his Stetson shading his gray eyes, a smile breaking through his work-worn face as he spotted Clara. "There's my little explorer," he said, dismounting to lift her into a hug. She giggled, tugging his beard, and Abigail's heart swelled, though her worry lingered. "Thomas is out like a light," Caleb noted, kissing her cheek. "You holding up with all this?" He gestured to the schoolhouse, where parents gathered for a reading. "Barely," she admitted, adjusting Thomas's sling. "Emily's letter has me on edge." "This Silas Reed, who is he?" Caleb's smile faded. "Trouble if Emily's right." Tom heard him at the saloon, talking up mining claims. "Says the hills are full of copper, maybe silver. Some ranchers are listening. Extra cash sounds good after the blizzard." Abigail frowned, the memory of last winter's losses still raw. "Mining could ruin the land, poison the stream. We fought too hard to let that happen." Caleb took her hand, his grip steady. "We'll handle it, Abigail." Like always. His faith anchored her, but the challenge felt different, not a single foe like Thornton or Kane, but a fracture within the valley itself. Part 39. The Newcomer's Pitch. By late June, Silas Reed's presence was undeniable. A wiry man with a preacher's charisma and a speculator's glint, he set up in Redstone Creek saloon, his maps and assay reports drawing crowds. His pitch was seductive. Mining would bring wealth, schools, and railroads, transforming the valley into a boomtown. "The future's in the hills," he declared, pointing to his maps. Copper's the new gold and Redstone Creek sitting on a fortune. Some ranchers, still recovering from winter's losses, were swayed, dreaming of quick riches. Others, loyal to the Dawsons' vision, saw only devastation: scarred land, polluted water, a community torn apart. Abigail and Caleb called a town meeting, the community hall packed with familiar faces and wary newcomers. Hannah Wheeler, her gray bun tight, stood by their side, her voice sharp. "Reed's promising the moon, but mining's a curse," she said. "I saw it in Colorado, towns gutted, rivers choked with sludge." Caleb took the floor, his presence calming the tense crowd. "We've built this valley on cattle, crops, and community," he said. "Mining's a gamble that could cost us everything: our land, our water, our kids' future." Abigail, with Clara on her hip and Thomas in her arms, spoke next, her voice steady despite the weight of motherhood. "The schoolhouse, the cooperative, our ranches, that's our wealth," she said. "Reed's offering money, but at what price? We fought blizzards, railroads, and cheats like Thornton. We can fight this too if we stay united." Her words resonated, but a newcomer, a young rancher named Lee Carter, stood, his face flushed. "With respect, Mrs. Dawson, some of us need that money. Winter near broke me. Reed's offering a way out." The room murmured, division creeping in. Silas Reed, seated at the back, rose with a smile. "I'm not here to divide you," he said, his voice smooth as river stones. "I'm offering partnership. Sell me a few acres, and you'll share the profits. The valley can have its cake and eat it too." Caleb's jaw tightened, but Abigail spoke first, her tone sharp. "Mr. Reed, your partnership sounds like a one-way deal. Mining poisons, land for generations. We won't trade our future for your promises." Her defiance sparked applause, but the rift was clear. Some ranchers, like Illy, were tempted, their desperation outweighing their trust. After the meeting, Abigail and Caleb strategized with Hannah and Tom. "We need to show the valley what's at stake," Abigail said. "A demonstration, prove mining's risks," Caleb nodded. "And we'll talk to Illy one-on-one. He's not greedy, just scared." Emily, responding to a telegram, promised to investigate Reed's claims in Denver, searching for evidence of fraud or environmental harm. Part 40, a demonstration of truth. In early July, Abigail organized a valley-wide event at the schoolhouse, billed as a Land and Legacy Day. The school grounds bloomed with activity. Tables displayed soil samples from the Dawson Ranch, clear stream water in jars, and wilted plants from a Colorado mining town, borrowed from Hannah's contacts. Children presented projects on the valley's ecosystem, their voices earnest, while Abigail read a poem she'd written. "This land is our heart, its streams our blood. No coin can buy what we've sown in love." Caleb, Tom, and Luke demonstrated the stream's role, pouring clean water through a model ranch to show its life-giving flow, then adding a mock mining sludge that turned it murky. The crowd gasped, the visual striking home. Lee Carter, watching with his young son, approached Abigail after. "I didn't know it'd be like that," he said, his voice low. "I thought Reed's money could save my place." Abigail touched his arm, her empathy genuine. "We'll help you, Ali. The cooperative's here for that. You're not alone." The event shifted the tide, ranchers recommitting to the valley's vision. Ali and others rejected Reed's offers, and the cooperative offered loans to struggling families, funded by the store's profits. But Reed didn't relent, his surveys continuing in the hills, his investors pressuring the territorial government for mining permits. Emily's research uncovered a damning truth. Reed's company had a history of environmental violations in Nevada, leaving towns bankrupt and rivers toxic. She sent the evidence to Abigail, who shared it at a second town meeting, her voice fierce. Reed's not our partner, he's a predator. We stop him now, or we lose everything. Part 41. A Family's Balance. As the fight against Reed intensified, Abigail and Caleb navigated the demands of their growing family. Clara's curiosity was boundless, her questions, "Why hills shiny, mama?" prompting Abigail to teach her about the land's value beyond minerals. Thomas, teething and restless, kept them up nights, testing their patience. Abigail, juggling school duties, the cooperative and motherhood, sometimes felt her energy fraying. One evening, as Clara and Thomas slept, she confessed to Caleb by the fire, her journal open but untouched. "I want to be everything for them for the valley, but I'm tired, Caleb." He knelt beside her, his gray eyes soft. "You're already everything, Abigail. You don't have to carry it alone." He took Thomas's next feeding, letting her sleep, and the next day he enlisted Hannah to help with school readings, easing Abigail's load. The gesture, small but profound, reminded her of their partnership's strength. She resumed her poetry, her verses now celebrating family. "In their laughter I find my rest, in their love my heart's bequest." Part 42. The Government's Verdict. In August, Abigail, Caleb, and Emily traveled to Cheyenne, leaving Clara and Thomas with Hannah. The territorial hearing on Reed's mining permits was a battle of ideals. Reed's lawyers touting economic growth, Emily presenting evidence of his company's violations, backed by the valley's petition. Caleb testified on the ranch's contributions, his voice steady, while Abigail spoke of the schoolhouse, her pregnancy with Thomas a distant memory but her passion undimmed. "Our children deserve clean water, unscarred land," she said. "Mining's wealth is fleeting, our valley's is eternal." The governor, swayed by the evidence and the valley's unity, denied Reed's permits, citing environmental risks. Reed left Redstone Creek, his investors retreating, and the valley celebrated with a barn dance, the fiddler's reels echoing under the stars. Abigail and Caleb danced, Clara clapping from Hannah's arms, Thomas asleep in a sling. "We did it again," Caleb whispered, his breath warm against her ear. "Because of you," Abigail replied, her heart full. Part 43. A Future Unfolds. By autumn 1879, the Wind River Valley stood stronger, its ranches thriving, its school a magnet for settlers, its cooperative a model for the West. Abigail's poetry was published in a Denver journal, her words reaching beyond the valley, while Caleb planned a regional cattle market, cementing Redstone Creek's influence. Clara and Thomas grew, their laughter the ranch's heartbeat, and Abigail and Caleb dreamed of a third child, their family a mirror of the valley's resilience. One evening, as the sun sank behind the Wind River Range, Abigail sat with Caleb on the porch, Clara and Thomas playing in the yard. "You came here with a valise," Caleb said, his hand in hers, "and gave us a legacy." Abigail smiled, her locket glinting in the twilight. "We gave it to each other, Caleb, for our children, for this valley, for every trial we turned to triumph." The Wyoming stars shone above, their light a promise of a love and community that would endure, rooted in a land that had claimed them forever. Part 44. A Season of Renewal. The spring of 1880 breathed life into the Wind River Valley, the Wyoming hills blooming with lupine and sagebrush, the streams swollen with snowmelt. Abigail Dawson stood in the schoolhouse library, shelving a new shipment of books from Denver, her green dress dusted with chalk from a morning of teaching. Clara, nearing 3, sat at a small table, scribbling with a crayon, while Thomas, almost a year old, napped in a cradle nearby, his soft snores blending with the valley's hum. The silver locket at Abigail's throat, a wedding gift from Caleb, shimmered in the sunlight, a symbol of the legacy they'd built since her arrival in Redstone Creek 4 years ago. The Dawson Ranch was a pillar of the valley's prosperity, its cattle driving regional markets, its cooperative store a model for frontier commerce, and its schoolhouse a beacon of education, now serving over 30 children. Abigail's poetry, published in Denver journals, had earned her a reputation as the Valley's voice, her verses weaving Boston elegance with Western grit. Caleb's regional cattle market, launched the previous autumn, drew buyers from Cheyenne to Salt Lake City, cementing Redstone Creek's influence. The Valley had overcome Samuel Thornton's schemes, Elias Kane's land grabs, a railroad's threat, a devastating blizzard, and a mining speculator's promises, each victory strengthening its communal spirit. Yet as Abigail helped Clara with her drawing, a new unease stirred. Wyoming's push for statehood, fueled by its growing economy, had sparked political maneuvering in Cheyenne, with factions vying for control of the territory's future. A letter from Emily Dawson, now a respected legal advocate, had arrived the previous week, warning of a new figure. Senator Amos Langley, a Cheyenne politician with ties to Thornton's old investors, was proposing a land reform bill that would favor large conglomerates over small ranchers. "It's dressed up as progress," Emily wrote, "but it could tax or seize Valley land for public use. Langley's coming to Redstone Creek to campaign. Be ready." Caleb entered the schoolhouse, his Stetson in hand, his gray eyes warm as he kissed Clara's head. "My little artist," he said, admiring her scribbles, then turned to Abigail, reading her expression. "You're thinking about Emily's letter," she nodded, adjusting Thomas's blanket. "Langley's bill could undo everything, our ranch, the cooperative, the school. If he sways the Valley," Caleb took her hand, his grip steady. "He won't. We've faced bigger wolves, Thornton Kane, Reed. We'll rally the Valley, show Langley what we're made of." His confidence bolstered her, but the stakes felt higher now, with 2 children and a community depending on their strength. Part 45, The Senator's Campaign. By early April, Senator Amos Langley arrived in Redstone Creek, his campaign a spectacle of banners and brass bands. A stout man with a silver mustache and a politician's charm, he spoke at the town square, promising roads, schools, and jobs if Wyoming embraced his vision of statehood. "The future lies in bold progress," he declared, his voice booming. "My land reform bill will ensure our territory thrives, with resources shared for the common good." But his bill's fine print, as Emily's research revealed, allowed conglomerates to claim Valley land under vague public use clauses, threatening small ranches like the Dawsons. Abigail and Caleb organized a town meeting, the community hall packed with ranchers, settlers, and newcomers drawn by the Valley's prosperity. Hannah Wheeler, her gray bun as fierce as her resolve, opened the discussion. "Langley's talking sweet, but his bill's poison," she said. "It'll hand our land to Cheyenne fat cats, same as Thornton's crowd." Caleb took the floor, his presence grounding the crowd. "We've built this valley on our terms: cattle, crops, community. Langley's bill isn't progress, it's theft dressed up in promises." Abigail, with Clara clinging to her skirt and Thomas in her arms, spoke next, her voice clear despite the weight of motherhood. "This school, this cooperative, this valley, they are our future," she said. "Langley wants to take our land, but he doesn't know our heart. We've beaten storms, speculators, and liars. We'll beat this too if we stand together." Her words sparked applause, but a newcomer, a merchant named Clara Benton, stood, her voice hesitant. "I respect you, Mrs. Dawson, but Langley's offering schools we can't afford. My shop's barely surviving. His bill could help." The room murmured, division creeping in. Langley, seated at the back, rose with a practiced smile. "I'm not your enemy," he said. "My bill ensures fairness, land for schools, roads, progress. Small ranches will benefit, not suffer." Caleb's jaw tightened, but Abigail responded, her tone sharp. "Senator, your bill lets conglomerates decide what's fair. We've seen that game before. Thornton, Kane, Reed. We won't play it again." Her defiance rallied the crowd, but Benton and other newcomers wavered, their economic struggles making Langley's promises tempting. Part 46. A Rally for the Valley. Determined to unite the Valley, Abigail proposed a Valley Pride Rally at the schoolhouse, a celebration of Redstone Creek's achievements to counter Langley's campaign. The event, set for late April, transformed the school grounds into a vibrant showcase. Tables displayed cooperative goods, cheese, wool, canned vegetables, while children performed songs about the valley's history, their voices ringing with pride. Abigail's poetry reading, a new piece titled "This Land, Our Oath," moved the crowd. "We carved our home from stone and storm, no senator's pen shall break its form." Caleb led a demonstration of the cooperative strength, showing ledgers of shared profits that had saved ranches like Lee Carter's. "This is what we've built," he said, his gray eyes fierce. "Not Langley's progress, but ours, earned with sweat and trust." Clara Benton, watching her daughter sing with the schoolchildren, approached Abigail after. "I was wrong," she said, her eyes wet. "Langley's promises sounded good, but this is real." "I'm with you," Abigail hugged her, relief mingling with resolve. "We're stronger together, Clara." The rally swayed most newcomers, and the cooperative offered loans to struggling merchants like Benton, funded by cattle market profits. But Langley escalated, his campaign spreading rumors that the Dawsons were hoarding water rights, harming the valley's growth. Emily, arriving from Denver, uncovered a deeper threat. Langley's bill was backed by a conglomerate eyeing the valley's streams for hydroelectric dams, a plan that would flood prime ranchland. "It's Thornton's playbook, refined," Emily said, poring over documents at the ranch. "We need to expose this in Cheyenne." Part 47. A Family's Heart. As the fight against Langley intensified, Abigail and Caleb leaned on their family for strength. Clara's growing vocabulary, "Mama, why man talk loud?" sparked laughter, her curiosity alight in tense days. Thomas took his first steps, wobbling across the parlor, his grin mirroring Caleb's. Abigail, balancing school duties, the cooperative, and motherhood, found solace in her poetry journal, its pages now a chronicle of family and fight. One night, as Clara and Thomas slept, she shared a fear with Caleb by the fire. "I want to protect them, this valley, but what if we lose?" Caleb pulled her close, his gray eyes steady. "We won't lose, Abigail. You've given this valley a voice, our children a future. We're fighting for them, and we're not alone." He handed her a small silver charm for her locket, engraved with Clara and Thomas's initials. "For the heart you carry," he said. The gesture rekindled her fire, and she wrote a new poem. "In their eyes I see our fight, in their love our endless light." Part 48. The Cheyenne Showdown. In May, Abigail, Caleb, and Emily traveled to Cheyenne, leaving Clara and Thomas with Hannah. The territorial legislature's hearing on Langley's bill was a high-stakes battle, the chamber packed with ranchers, settlers, and conglomerate agents. Emily presented evidence of the conglomerate's dam plans, linking them to Langley's backers and Thornton's old network. Caleb testified on the valley's economic contributions, his voice unwavering, while Abigail spoke of the schoolhouse, her poetry quoted in Denver papers now a weapon. "Our valley isn't just land," she said. "It's families, dreams, a future you can't buy." The legislature, swayed by the evidence and the valley's petition, rejected Langley's bill, prioritizing small ranchers' rights. Langley's campaign faltered, his conglomerate backers retreating, and Redstone Creek celebrated with a schoolhouse festival, children's laughter mingling with the fiddlers' reels. Abigail and Caleb danced, Clara and Thomas in their arms, their family a symbol of the valley's triumph. Part 49. A Legacy Eternal. By summer 1880, the Wind River Valley shone as a model of frontier resilience, its ranches thriving, its school a regional draw, its cooperative a blueprint for Wyoming's future. Abigail's poetry was anthologized, her voice reaching the east, while Caleb's cattle market expanded, drawing investors who respected the valley's terms. Clara and Thomas grew, their games filling the ranch with joy, and Abigail and Caleb planned a third child, their love a wellspring of hope. One evening, as the sun sank behind the Wind River Range, Abigail sat with Caleb on the porch, Clara and Thomas chasing fireflies. "You came here with a valise," Caleb said, his hand in hers, "and gave us eternity." Abigail smiled, her locket glinting in the dusk. "We gave it to each other, Caleb, for our children, for this valley, for every storm we turned to starlight." The Wyoming stars blazed above, their light a testament to a love and community that would endure, rooted in a land that had claimed them forever. Part 50. A Harvest of Hope. The autumn of 1880 cloaked the Wind River Valley in a tapestry of crimson and gold, the Wyoming hills alive with the rustle of falling leaves. Abigail Dawson stood in the cooperative store, tallying sales of canned peaches and wool blankets, her green dress flecked with dust from a morning at the schoolhouse. Clara, now 3, played nearby, stacking jars under Hannah Wheeler's watchful eye, while Thomas, a year old, toddled after her, his laughter echoing through the store. The silver locket at Abigail's throat, a wedding gift from Caleb, glowed in the lantern light, a symbol of the life they'd built since her arrival in Redstone Creek 4 years ago. The Dawson Ranch was the heart of a thriving valley, its cattle driving Wyoming's markets, its cooperative store a regional model, and its schoolhouse a magnet for settlers, now educating 40 children. Abigail's poetry, anthologized in Denver and Boston, had made her a voice of the West, her verses blending frontier resilience with universal hope. Caleb's cattle market had grown into a territorial hub, drawing ranchers and traders who respected Redstone Creek's independent spirit. The valley had triumphed over Samuel Thornton's schemes, Elias Kane's land grabs, a railroad's threat, a blizzard's wrath, a mining speculator's promises, and a senator's political ploy, each victory forging a stronger community. Yet as Abigail helped Clara restack the jars, a new tension simmered. The valley's prosperity had drawn a wave of settlers, farmers, merchants, and laborers, doubling Redstone Creek's population in a year. The influx brought trade but also strain, with old-timers clashing over land boundaries and water access. A letter from Emily Dawson, now a legal consultant for Wyoming statehood push, warned of a brewing conflict. "The newcomers want a say in the valley's future," she wrote. "Some are pushing for a town charter that could favor their interest over ranchers. A lawyer named Clara Vaughn is leading them. She's sharp, be cautious." Caleb entered the store, his Stetson dusted with hay, his gray eyes warm as he scooped Thomas into a hug. "Trouble's brewing already," he said, kissing Abigail's cheek. "Tom says the new settlers are meeting tonight, talking about a charter." Vaughn stirring them up, Abigail frowned, setting down her ledger. A charter could split the valley, ranchers against settlers. "We've worked too hard for unity," Caleb nodded, his hand finding hers. "We'll go to their meeting, hear them out. If Vaughn's trouble, we'll face her together." His steadiness calmed her, but the challenge felt personal, threatening the community they'd bled to build. Part 51. The Settlers' Charter. That evening, the community hall buzzed with tension. Old-timers like Hannah and Tom mingling warily with newcomers in patched coats and city boots. Clara Vaughn, A tall woman with piercing blue eyes and a lawyer's poise stood at the front, her voice clear. "Redstone Creek needs a town charter," she said. "A formal government to manage growth, allocate land, and ensure fair water use. The valley's booming, but without structure, we'll fracture." Her words resonated with settlers, who nodded, their struggles with cramped plots and scarce resources fueling their support. Caleb rose, his presence commanding. "We've thrived without a charter," he said. "Our cooperative, our school, our unity, that's what's kept us strong. A charter risks handing power to a few, not the valley." Abigail, with Thomas on her hip and Clara holding her hand, added, "This valley's heart is its people, not paperwork. We've beaten storms, speculators, and politicians by working together. A charter could divide us, favor one group over another." Her voice, honed by years of poetry and advocacy, stirred the crowd, but Vaughn countered, her tone sharp. "Mrs. Dawson, your cooperative favors ranchers. Settlers need land and water, too. A charter ensures equity." The room split, ranchers clapping for the Dawsons, settlers cheering Vaughn. Illy Carter, once swayed by mining promises, but now a cooperative stalwart, stood hesitantly. "I see both sides," he said. "The valley's growing, but a charter feels like Cheyenne's rules, not ours." The debate raged, old-timers fearing loss of control, newcomers demanding a voice. Vaughn's charisma swayed many, and Abigail sensed a rift that could undo years of unity. Part 52, A Bridge of Understanding. Determined to heal the divide, Abigail proposed a Valley Unity Fair at the schoolhouse, a celebration of all residents, ranchers, settlers, merchants, to showcase shared goals. Set for mid-October, the fair transformed the school grounds. Tables brimmed with cooperative goods, settler crafts, and schoolchildren's art, while a fiddler played reels that blended old frontier tunes with new settler songs. Clara and Thomas helped Abigail set up, their giggles a reminder of why she fought. Her new poem, "One Valley, One Heart," opened the fair. "From ranch to plot, we share this land, our futures forged by every hand." Caleb led a panel with Illy and Hannah discussing the cooperative's benefits: loans, shared equipment, market access that could extend to settlers. Abigail invited Vaughn to speak, a gesture of goodwill. "We want fairness," Vaughn said, her tone softening. "Your cooperative's a start, but settlers need land security." Abigail nodded, seeing her sincerity. "Let's work together," she said. "A charter, if it comes, must serve all, not divide us." The crowd applauded, and Vaughn, after a pause, agreed to negotiate. The fair bridged gaps, settlers joining the cooperative, ranchers offering land swaps to ease boundary disputes. Emily, arriving from Denver, mediated talks, drafting a compromise. A valley council, not a charter, with equal representation for ranchers and settlers, preserving the cooperative's autonomy. Vaughn endorsed it, her ambition tempered by the valley's spirit. "You're formidable, Mrs. Dawson," she said, shaking Abigail's hand. "I underestimated you," Abigail smiled. "We're all Redstone Creek, Miss Vaughn. That's our strength." Part 53, A Family's Anchor. As the fair united the valley, Abigail and Caleb leaned on their family for balance. Clara's questions, "Why people fight Papa?" prompted bedtime stories of the valley's triumphs, her curiosity a spark of hope. Thomas's first words, "Mama" and "Dada," filled them with joy, his toddling steps a daily adventure. Abigail, juggling school, cooperative, and motherhood, found solace in her poetry, her journal now a legacy for her children. One night, as Clara and Thomas slept, she shared a doubt with Caleb by the fire. "I want to give them everything, this valley, this home, but what if growth changes it?" Caleb pulled her close, his gray eyes steady. "You've given them a world, Abigail. Growth won't break us, It'll make us stronger because of you." He gifted her a leather-bound book for her poetry, its cover embossed with their initials. "For the stories you'll tell them," he said. The gesture reignited her resolve, and she wrote, "In their dreams our valley grows, in their hearts our love bestows." Part 54, A Council's Dawn. In November, the Valley Council convened, its first meeting a testament to unity. Ranchers like Illy, settlers like Vaughn, and merchants like Clara Benton sat together, approving land swaps, water agreements, and school expansions. The cooperative thrived, its profits funding a new bridge over the stream, easing settler access. Emily's legal work ensured the council's charter protected small ranches, a bulwark against Cheyenne's influence. The valley celebrated with a harvest dance, the schoolhouse aglow, children's laughter mingling with the fiddler's tunes. Abigail and Caleb danced, Clara and Thomas in their arms, their family a beacon of the valley's heart. "We did it," Caleb whispered, his breath warm. "Because of us," Abigail replied, her locket glinting. The victory was collective, a new chapter in Redstone Creek's saga. Part 55, A Legacy Eternal. By spring 1881, the Wind River Valley stood as Wyoming's pride, its council a model for statehood, its school a regional hub, its cooperative a beacon of equity. Abigail's poetry graced national magazines, her voice shaping the West's narrative, while Caleb's market drew global buyers, their ranch a symbol of resilience. Clara and Thomas grew, their games filling the ranch with light, and Abigail and Caleb planned a third child, their love a wellspring of possibility. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the Wind River Range, Abigail sat with Caleb on the porch, Clara and Thomas chasing stars. "You came here with a valise," Caleb said, his hand in hers, "and gave us forever." Abigail smiled, her locket catching the twilight. "We gave it to each other, Caleb, for our children, for this valley, for every dream we wove into eternity." The Wyoming stars shone above, their light a testament to a love and community that would endure, rooted in a land that had claimed them forever. Part 56, The Golden Years. The summer of 1890 cast a warm glow over the Wind River Valley, its Wyoming hills rolling under a sky of endless blue, the streams glinting like veins of silver through the sagebrush. Abigail Dawson, now 40, stood on the porch of the Dawson Ranch, her green dress softened by years of wear, her silver locket, Caleb's wedding gift from 16 years ago, resting against her heart. Her hair, once dark, was streaked with silver, but her eyes burned with the same fire that had carried her from a Boston boarding house to the frontier, transforming a desperate hope into a legacy that defined a valley. The ranch was a monument to resilience, its pastures teeming with cattle, its barns stocked with cooperative goods, and its garden a vibrant patchwork feeding families across Redstone Creek. The schoolhouse, now a two-story academy, educated over 100 children, its library, Abigail's pride, housing her published poetry alongside works from across the nation. The cooperative store had grown into a regional hub, its profits funding bridges, roads, and a hospital, while Caleb's cattle market drew traders from Denver to San Francisco, making Redstone Creek a cornerstone of Wyoming's economy as the state celebrated its statehood, achieved in July 1890. Clara, now 14, stood beside Abigail, her dark curls bouncing as she read from a poetry journal, her voice echoing her mother's cadence. Thomas, 11, chased his younger sister, Emily, 9, through the yard, their laughter mingling with the breeze. A third son, Samuel, 6, toddled after them, his chubby hands clutching a wooden horse Caleb had carved. The children were the heart of the ranch, their lives woven into the valley's fabric, Clara teaching younger students, Thomas helping with cattle, Emily organizing school plays, and Samuel trailing his siblings with boundless curiosity. Caleb emerged from the barn, his Stetson tilted back, his gray eyes crinkled with lines of laughter and labor. At 45, he was a patriarch of the valley, his leadership having steered Redstone Creek through Thornton's schemes, Kane's land grabs, railroad threats, blizzards, mining ploys, political battles, and social divides. "Looks like a family council's in order," he said, wrapping an arm around Abigail. "Clara's got that poet's look again." Clara grinned, holding up her journal. "I wrote about the valley, Papa, like Mama does." Abigail kissed her forehead. "You're our voice now, Clara." The valley had faced its final major trial in 1885, when a drought tested its resilience. Abigail and Caleb had rallied the cooperative, sharing water and hay, while Emily Dawson, now a Wyoming senator, secured state aid. The victory cemented Redstone Creek's reputation, drawing settlers who embraced its ethos of unity. Hannah Wheeler, now retired but sharp as ever, presided over town festivals, her tales of the Dawsons' triumphs legendary. Ellie Carter and Clara Vaughn, once swayed by outsiders, led the Valley Council, ensuring equity for all. Part 57, The Last Harvest. That autumn, Redstone Creek hosted its annual Harvest Festival, a tradition born from Abigail's vision of unity. The schoolhouse grounds glowed with lanterns, tables groaned under roast venison, pumpkin pies, and cooperative cheeses, and a fiddler played reels that echoed across the valley. Children performed a play about the valley's founding, Clara's script weaving her mother's poetry with tales of grit. Abigail, now a published author with a national following, read a new poem, Eternal Valley. "From Valise to victory, we carved this land. Its heart beats strong in every hand." Caleb spoke next, his voice steady. "This valley is our legacy, not just ours but yours," he said, gesturing to the crowd. "We've faced storms, schemers, and time itself, and we're still here, stronger for it." The crowd cheered, old-timers like Tom Thornton and newcomers alike raising glasses of cider. Emily, visiting from Cheyenne, toasted her brother and sister-in-law. To Abigail and Caleb, who turned a frontier dream into Wyoming soul. As fireworks lit the sky, Abigail stood with Caleb, their children around them, the valley stretching before them in a golden haze. Memories flooded her. The stagecoach arrival, Thornton's rejection, the storm that led her to Caleb's barn, the battles that forged their love. Each trial had been a thread in a tapestry now complete, its colors vibrant with family, community, and land. Part 58, A Final Vow. That night as the children slept, Abigail and Caleb sat by the fire, her poetry journal open, his hand in hers. "You came here with a valise," Caleb said, his gray eyes soft, "and gave me a world." Abigail smiled, her locket catching the firelight. "We gave it to each other, Caleb, for our children, for this valley, for a love that outlasted every storm." She opened her journal to a final poem, written for him. "In your eyes I found my home. Through your heart our legacy's grown." They stepped onto the porch, the Wyoming stars blazing above, the Wind River Valley silent but alive with their dreams. Clara's journal lay on the table, her words a new chapter. Thomas's carved toys, Emily's play scripts, and Samuel's laughter promised a future as bold as their past. Redstone Creek, once a dusty stop, was now Wyoming's heart. Its story carried in Abigail's poetry, Caleb's markets, and the Valley Council's equity. Abigail leaned into Caleb, their hands entwined. "We did it," she whispered. "We built forever." He kissed her, his touch as fierce as their first day, as tender as their last. "Forever's just the start," he said. Under the stars, the Dawsons stood, their family and valley a testament to a love that had turned a stranger's hope into an eternal legacy, rooted in a land that would sing their names as long as the rivers ran. The autumn of 1885 painted the Wind River Valley in shades of amber and russet, the Wyoming plains glowing under a sky streaked with twilight's fire. Abigail Dawson, now 35, stood on the porch of the Dawson Ranch, her green dress softened by years of love and labor, her silver locket, Caleb's wedding gift from 11 years ago, warm against her heart. Her dark hair, touched with early gray, framed eyes that held the wisdom of a woman who had turned a desperate journey from Boston into a legacy that defined a valley. The ranch was a testament to endurance, its pastures alive with cattle, its cooperative store bustling with trade, and its garden feeding Redstone Creek's growing families. The schoolhouse, now a regional academy, educated 60 children, its library, Abigail's vision, housing her poetry alongside classics, a beacon of learning in the frontier. Caleb's cattle market, a territorial powerhouse, drew traders from Cheyenne to Denver, while the Valley Council, born of their fight for unity, ensured equity for ranchers and settlers alike. Redstone Creek had triumphed over Samuel Thornton's greed, Elias Kane's schemes, railroad threats, blizzards, mining ploys, political battles, and social divides, each victory forging a community as unyielding as the Wyoming hills. Clara, 9, sat on the porch steps, reading a poem she'd written about the stream, her voice a youthful echo of Abigail's. Thomas, 6, whittled a wooden bird with a knife Caleb had taught him to use, while Emily, 4, danced with a rag doll, her laughter bright. A fourth child, Hannah, 2, napped inside, her soft snores a quiet hymn. The children were the ranch's soul, their futures tied to the valley, Clara's words promising to carry its story, Thomas's hands learning its work, Emily's spirit lighting its joy, and Hannah's innocence its hope. Caleb, 40, emerged from the barn, his Stetson shading gray eyes etched with lines of laughter and resolve. He was the valley's anchor, his leadership having guided Redstone Creek through every storm. "Clara's a poet already," he said, kissing Abigail's cheek. "Takes after her mama," Abigail smiled, leaning into him. "And Thomas has your hands. We've built something eternal, Caleb." He wrapped an arm around her, their children's voices weaving a melody of home. The valley's latest trial, a drought in 1884, had tested their resolve, but Abigail's cooperative had shared water, Caleb's market had secured aid, and Emily Dawson, now a Wyoming legislator, had passed laws protecting small ranches. Redstone Creek emerged stronger, its council a model for the statehood Wyoming would soon achieve. Hannah Wheeler, now a grandmotherly figure, told tales of the Dawsons' courage at every festival, while Lily Carter and Clara Vaughn, once divided, now led the council with fairness. That October, Redstone Creek held its Harvest Festival, a tradition rooted in Abigail's dream of unity. The schoolhouse grounds shimmered with lanterns, tables laden with venison, cornbread, and Abigail's apple tarts, the air alive with the fiddler's reels. Children performed a play about the valley's birth, Clara's lines woven with her mother's poetry. Abigail, her poetry now read across America, shared a final verse, Valley Eternal. From a Valise's hope, we shape this land. Its heart endures in every hand. Caleb addressed the crowd, his voice resonant. This vow is our vow, to our children, to each other, to a future we earn together. The crowd roared, old-timers like Tom Thornton and newcomers raising cider in tribute. Emily, home from Cheyenne, toasted, to Abigail and Caleb, who made Redstone Creek Wyoming's heart. Fireworks burst above, their light a celebration of a community that had defied time and trial. As the festival faded, Abigail and Caleb stood with their children, the valley stretching before them, its hills aglow with dusk. Memories surged, the stagecoach's dust, Thornton's cruelty, the storm that led her to Caleb, the battles that forged their love. Each had been a stone in a foundation now unshakable, built on family, community, and a land that had claimed them. That night, with the children asleep, Abigail and Caleb sat by the fire, her poetry journal open, his hand in hers. "You came here with nothing but a valise," Caleb said, his eyes soft, "and gave us forever." Abigail's smile was a poet's, her locket catching the fire's glow. "We gave it to each other, Caleb, for our children, for this valley, for a love stronger than any storm." She read her final poem. "In your heart I found my land, in our love, eternity's hand." They stepped onto the porch, the Wyoming stars a canopy above, the Wind River Valley silent yet alive with their legacy. Clara's poems, Thomas's carvings, Emily's dances, and Hannah's laughter promised a future as bold as their past. Redstone Creek, once a frontier outpost, was now Wyoming's soul. Its story carried in Abigail's words, Caleb's markets, and the council's justice. Abigail leaned into Caleb, their hands entwined. "We built it," she whispered. "A home, a heart, a world." He kissed her, his touch eternal. "And it's ours always." Under the stars, the Dawsons stood, their family and valley a monument to a love that had turned a stranger's dream into a legacy that would echo as long as the rivers ran. The hills stood, and the Wyoming sky burned with light.